COVID, and I don't think either of my colleagues have COVID either. But even with that, with COVID having come and gone for the most part, there's a lot that's still around and a lot that's still out there, and some precautions when you attend holiday gatherings are in order. And I'm just going to say from personal experience, don't ever be embarrassed to let people know who are expecting you at an event that you're not going to be able to be there, because for you to be there with a throat that is obviously scratchy or a head cold that is also obvious can cause discomfort to a lot of other people. Not to mention it could actually, result in an ailment spreading to other people. So the three of us who aren't there tonight join together in our caution, but it is in the best interest of public health that we're not there. So that's that part of the announcement. I want to say that I received news just this afternoon. The death actually occurred about 5 days ago. No, not 5 days ago, 3 days ago, of a person who was the head of a family that a lot of people in Brookline know and love. And the person I'm speaking of is Robert Allen Sr., and he has passed, and his family, I'm sure, is grieving, and his family includes some people that a lot of us know well, have worked with over the years. The family has a tradition in the police department, but it also has a tradition in other places, including on this very select board. It's one of those families that people kind of identify with Brookline, and they have lost their beloved senior member. So we join in the mourning the passing of Robert Allen. I'm also going to mention someone who I hope this name will be familiar to a lot of people. It certainly deserves to be familiar to a lot of people, and that is Linda Larson. And Linda Larson passed just within the last day or so. I had the distinct privilege of serving on the board of Brookline Adult and Community Education during a period when Linda Larson was the director of the program. And boy, did she build that program. And she was such a believer in that program, such a believer in this notion that the community can be the school of all of its people. And that's what adult and community education was all about. People from the community teaching courses to people from the community. So drawing on their knowledge, drawing on their specialties, and sharing all of that with their fellow community members. And so you could get a very good, excuse me, there's that throat. You could get a very good education just by attending a lot of the classes that Linda built into the program of Brookline and adult and community education. She also supported a lot of artists whose works she featured regularly on the program books for the adult and community education program. So I've gone on too long, but she will be missed deeply by those who worked with her and by those who gained in their education from the programs that she ran.
Thank you, John. Let me just mention that there are 4 board members who are not in person, and it's just me and Chaz holding down the fort.
I hear Mike is on his way, though, right?
No, Mike is right here.
Oh, Mike.
I am going to be taking a break at 5:30 and coming back on is around 7:30.
Okay, Mike, you wanted to make an announcement?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Oh, just that.
Yeah.
Any other announcements from the select board?
Quick for me.
Okay, Chaz.
Just a quick reminder, Public Health Department is offering free COVID tests to residents this holiday season to help prevent the spread of illness tomorrow, December 20th from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Public Health Building, which is right here, 11 Pierce Street. You can pick up a complimentary kit that includes 5 at-home COVID-19 tests. Each person is limited to 1 box or 1 set of 5, but proof of residency is not required. And now additionally, the walk-in clinic will be open during that time for residents looking to get their flu shot. The CDC recommends that folks over 65 get a high-dose vaccine. So we will have both the standard vaccine for people 6 months and older and the high-dose one for people 65 and older. And again, this clinic is open to all residents regardless of their insurance status. But if you have insurance, you do have to bring your insurance card. That's how they can afford to pay for it. If you can't make that, but you need to schedule a flu shot, you can always call the public health nurse. That line is 617-730-2320. Again, 617-730-2320. Clinic is open from 2 to 4 p.m. tomorrow. Come by and pick up your test kits. Get your shot if you haven't yet. Thank you.
It's not too late to get your shot. We're only halfway through the season.
Thank you. Okay.
One
Any other comments? Paul?
One quick comment. Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to our DPW police and fire for yesterday's response. That storm was significant. We had flooding, we had downed trees, we had damaged vehicles, blocked roadways. And, you know, there was a point where all you heard was sirens. And I was very worried about what that meant. But we have an amazing set of individuals that serve our community, and they did a remarkable job in working to clear the streets. And I also want to thank all of the residents that took the effort to go out, find the storm drain, you know, under 3 feet of water, and move the leaves away from the storm drain so that they could drain. I mean, it seems like a simple thing, but it's not easy. I've done it. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that responded, staff, as well as individuals that contributed to their community by helping out. So thank you so much. It really does take everybody in an emergency like that. And it was quite a catastrophic situation. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Paul. So unless there are any other comments from the select board, let's go to public comment. Devin, please set out the rules.
Thank you for joining us for public comment. This is an opportunity for us to hear your perspective on the issues in Brookline that matter to you. We do have a few rules. Each person tonight is limited to 3 minutes. You don't need to use the entire time, but you may if you like. Members of the public sometimes raise questions during public comment. We may be able to provide a quick answer, but are more likely to work with staff offline and respond over email. We'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining, and when your time is up, please conclude your remarks. If you have more to say, you are welcome to send an email to board members expressing your thoughts in greater detail or waiting until the conclusion of the board's business at tonight's meeting. We do already have 5 people signed up to speak during the initial public comment period and 2 people signed up to speak at the conclusion of the board's business. The first person signed up for public comment is Jamar Payne. Oh, you have an order. Yes. Or just who's first? Thank you. All right, first up is Sana Hafiz. You can join us at the presentation station. Please introduce yourself and your 3 minutes will begin.
Hello, my name is Sana Hafiz, speaking in the capacity of a Brookline resident. And now, thanks to Black and Brown Aviation Training Program, officially speaking as an FAA Part 107 rating holder. In other words, a FAA licensed drone pilot. I wanted to share with the community that B&B ATP is busier than ever and moving at an even faster pace than before. Not only has B&B ATP successfully graduated another cohort of residents through its Aviation Workforce Development Program, but its next cohort begins classes next month. B&B ATP, in partnership with Green Aviation Global, has been working on making FAA UAM Concept 2.0 a reality by the launch deadline of 2025. These efforts are called Project Fatima, which stands for Future Aviation Technology Integration Management Agency. The first step of Project Fatima in bringing UAM, or urban air mobility, to the state is a UAM feasibility study. This feasibility study will set up the state of Massachusetts to be ready for 2025 when the FAA will push the full commercialization with initial advanced air mobility operations. B&B ATP now has relationships within the aviation industry, from aircraft mechanics to aviation manufacturing companies, and so many more, as is necessary to complete the FAA mandated goals. Some of you have already received flyers with a QR code that you can scan to learn more about Project Fatima and the feasibility study. Many more will be getting those flyers soon. It's important to stay informed about the changes that without a doubt will occur in the next few years with the FAA UAM Concept 2.0 being implemented. But it's also important to remember that you can be a part of this history and this industry. If you want to break into the aviation industry and join the only all-minority aviation workforce development program in the state, apply on bnbatp.com and check out our aviation magazine while you're there. Thanks.
The next person signed up for public comment is Nora Birch.
Hi, my name is Nora. I'm one of the residents that was a student in the Black and Brown Aviation Training Program. I was excited when I was accepted into this program. I looked forward to getting a federal license that will allow me many more job opportunities in this post-COVID work landscape. I have learned so much about the aviation industry and all of the new developments with drones. I didn't realize how fast technology is changing and that I can be a part of that new world that will be here soon. I wanted to let everyone know that I recently graduated the 107 training program and earned my Part 107 license and am officially an FAA certified drone pilot. I recommend that everyone check out the website bnbatp.com for more information about future classes and even scholarship opportunities. And I especially recommend you to check out greenaviationglobal.com to read more about Project Fatima and the feasibility study that's happening in Brookline right now. I look forward to continuing my education and maybe even earning my instructor's license so I can teach more people like me. It's amazing to watch the things I learn about in class become a reality day by day. And it's even more amazing to be a part of making it happen. Thanks.
The next person signed up for public comment is Jamar Payne.
No doubt. How y'all doing? Good evening. My name is Ty. I was recently accepted into the Black and Brown Aviation Training Program. I'm going to be taking the FAA 107 training course to become a drone pilot. I'm pumped about this opportunity that I would have never came across if it wasn't for this program. I get to learn from instructors that look like me, and soon I'll become one of the many faces in this industry that lack more Black faces in this industry and lacks diversity. I've seen the work that these brothers and sisters have done, and I'm excited about all that is to come. In fact, I'm mostly excited for being a part of this program that is an all-minority aviation workforce development program that will be purchasing a flying car. In fact, so you could check this out in the magazine, as some of the colleagues mentioned, and just very thankful for this opportunity. So thank you very much.
The next person signed up for public comment is Marshall Ellis.
Hi, how's everybody doing? Doing good. I'm Marshall Ellis. I just was recently accepted into the Black and Brown Aviation Training Program as well. I'm going to be taking the FAA 107 training course to become a drone pilot. Growing up, I never saw or heard people like me doing things in aviation, but to be honest, I didn't hear much about aviation, and when I did, only 2% of pilots are Black, and it kind of made sense. Just what I've seen so far about all the new changes that are going on and happening, not just in Brookline, but all over Massachusetts, I couldn't be more excited. The future and what this license will mean for me, my family, and the community, the opportunity to get this license will change my life and this program and it's already changing the community already. I look forward to being a positive role model in my community by becoming a drone pilot and working with my classmates in the aviation industry. Like everybody's already saying, I recommend everybody to check out the Black and Brown Aviation Training Program at bnbatp.com. Thank you.
The next person signed up for public comment is Ron Eggleston.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ronald Eggleston. I like to say for Black and Brown, I never seen any organization like this before. I've been living in Brookline for like what 15 to 20 years, and we never seen any type of program that, as a kid, as me coming up, not understanding, you know what I mean, the benefits that, you know what I mean, that was never given to us. So we had to, you know what I mean, do other things. But from my understanding and from what I see, this organization's been a beautiful help to our people, to Black and Brown people. I never seen technology and flying cards and all type of stuff that's going on. And like I said, man, this organization is beautiful. From my understanding and my knowledge, we never had that. Wish we had that when we was growing up as kids. But from what I see, this is a big help for Black and Brown people. And I like to say, everybody have a blessed night, and thank you.
The next person signed up for public comment is Adi Ejanusi.
Ade Genesee, Brookline resident. Not too much to say. The year's wrapping up. We just wanted to bring the town's attention to what 2024 would be. The issue about UAM and AAM, Advanced Air Mobility Studies, and the option that aviation has and will offer for Black communities in the future. In the last couple of months, or rather through the year, we've been talking about this. So now, it's imperative to bring to the town's attention. The Department of Transportation, this is an initiative by them to make sure that in the future, transportation, the face of transportation and how people move around will change. And it is necessary and imperative the town understand the role that we are playing in that. Being a minority, we've talked about it. But now the proof is in the pudding, a lot of work to be done. Hopefully, we will produce more 107 pilots and on the way. And I hope you guys, regardless of the emotional disagreements throughout the year, just for the record, I hope it's not a greatly for the Regina Frawleys and the rest of them. But I wish everybody well. 2024, we're looking forward to do some work. So hopefully you guys will meet us at the middle. If not, the train keep moving. Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Thank you, Devin. Next, miscellaneous agenda. I'd like to start off with question of approving the following meeting minutes. November 28th, 2023, December 5th, 2023, and a licensing hearing held on December 13, 2023. Unless there are any questions, comments, I'd like to move approval. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac? You're muted.
And thank you very much. Sorry, I was muted. I have a question, if I may.
Sure.
The licensing hearing you mentioned, is that one of the Wednesday hearings that only one member of the board attends?
Yes.
So then
I mean,
I
unless
don't,
I'm, yeah, okay.
I don't feel I could approve the minutes if I wasn't there, but if I wasn't in attendance, and I feel like this is a question we never really addressed when we set up this procedure, which I favor, of having one select board member, sit in on administrative hearings on some of these routine relicensing actions. So does this just complicate it too much if having not been there, we don't have votes on the board sufficient to approve the minutes?
Well, if that's how you look at it, yes, that would complicate matters. But I don't think every select board member has to be at the meeting to be able to approve the minutes. What we're approving is that the minutes were presented to us and that we've heard no comments regarding the inaccuracy of the minutes. And that's the only way that we can actually do this. What do you think?
I think it's important to have a means of transmitting to you a record of what happened, and for you to accept that. If what you'd prefer is that we take an additional step and that the panel approve the minutes and then transmit them to you for your acceptance, we could certainly frame it that way. I just think in this instance, it's important for us to ensure that there is an affirmative vote of the board indicating that it finds that the transmission of the information is acceptable. You have what you need to be informed to vote on these licensing issues.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I hope people understand where I'm coming from on this. Every meeting I've ever attended at which there were minutes approved has included people who will say routinely, I wasn't at that meeting, so I have to abstain on this vote. And I where we hadn't had a discussion of what this implies for our proceeding on licenses, I'm just not ready yet to figure out what we're supposed to do in this situation.
Okay, do other board members feel the same way?
Had my hand up, Bernard. Can you see my?
Paul?
Yep. So thank you. Sorry, hold on. So yes, I agree with John. I think that the board should acknowledge or accept receipt of the minutes from the subcommittee or whatever we're calling it. And that the committee itself that's doing this work should confirm its own minutes and transmit them to the board. I think that's a reasonable way to go about it.
I see town council's walked into the meeting.
How fortunate.
I think, I think that's fine. I think we can happily do that. And if you want to do that, we can hold these for now. And the next time the panel meets, it just means that there'll be a lag. You will be asked to approve licensing material, licenses and, material from those meetings with, minutes that haven't been ratified by the committee, by the panel as of yet, because the panel only meets once a month. So, and it is really important for the businesses to have their licenses addressed in an appropriate fashion if there's no concerns, after, in the select board meeting after the panel meets. So if that's okay with the board, if the board is comfortable receiving the draft minutes effectively as a report, and then voting in the miscellaneous agenda on those items with the formal minutes to be finalized at when the panel meets the following month, we can do it that way.
Doesn't that create the same problem John is talking about? And that is that doesn't that create the same problem that John referred to? And that is that we'll be voting on the licenses without having an approved set of minutes from the hearing.
Well, again, if you treat it as a report, it need not be an approved set of minutes. If you treat it as a report, I review those. I'm sure other members of the panel review them. You may recall the first couple times the panel met, I actually wrote a detailed separate report that I put in your packets just to show you how the process was working and kind of took it step by step through that. If that's, if you treat the minutes in that fashion, or if I put them into that kind of report fashion, then you have the information about how the meeting went, and you can vote on it in that way, if you think that's appropriate. And then the formal minutes can be finalized by the panel the next month that it meets. But no, you should still, it wouldn't mean you didn't have the necessary information. It would just mean that you wouldn't have minutes per se. You just have a report from staff on how the meeting went.
That works for me. I'm just speaking as one individual member.
So, Town Council, we're talking about whether the Select Board should approve minutes of the hearing panel on licenses and other matters, even though not all Select Board members attended the meeting of the hearing panel.
So good evening, Joe Callahan, Town Council. Sorry, I was finishing my dinner in my office, which is right next door. So I heard a conversation and wolfed down the last couple of bites and came over. So there's no requirement that a member of a body be present for approving the minutes. I understand that there's a convention that some people don't want to do that. There's no legal requirement that you are there. You just have to be, when you're voting, be confident that they're accurate, they're fair and accurate. You can rely on staff. If there's a reason that you have a question about something in the minutes, then you want to check with staff, that's fair, but there's no legal requirement that you have to be there just to vote on it. Going to what Chaz is talking about, we're trying to figure out some way of reporting to the entire body the activities of this committee. So how you want that done is really up to you. Because again, there's no legal requirement that they get minutes to you, that they get a report to you, that you vote on the report, you vote on the minutes. It's just, what is it that you're going to feel comfortable doing as we figure out this way to have a lot of this duty delegated to the licensing committee instead of having the whole select board hear every single matter.
Okay. Paul, you have your hand up?
Yep, I had a question for town council. Joe, could you tell me if, I'm sorry, my voice is off. I don't know where it went. It left me. Joe, could you, do you know, or do you have an opinion about whether we're required to have meeting minutes for the license hearings? Did you hear?
So I would want you to have some written document, because then, before whatever product of the committee is then taken up by the select board, So is it a report? Is it minutes? Is there some, writing to kind of explain to the other board members what that committee heard and did? That's what I'd want to see.
Yeah, okay.
You want to call it a report? You want to call it minutes? That's up to you guys. But generally how these would come about is if there's a challenge that we need to document and show that that license was granted. So I would want some paper and a vote of the committee to point to the committee voted on this day, and this is the action that they took.
So this would be just a report from the subcommittee. This is what we've been doing, so that the board has the information it needs in order to make a decision. If that report meets the legal requirement, I would suggest that that's what this licensing committee does, is it initiates a report that the board then uses to make decisions.
That's fine. We can absolutely do that. We can take the place of formal minutes. It's still a record of the contemporaneous record of the meeting, created and maintained by staff. The select board and members of the panel have the opportunity to review it, offer opportunity for corrections or concerns, and then we can take it from there. So we're happy to do that. If we'd rather do a report in lieu of minutes and therefore kind of spare the kind of formalization a month later of the document, then I think we should be fine on that front, as long as the select board is comfortable with that.
Okay, so we would view, for example, the December 13 hearing minutes as a report, and we'll retitle it, and we're just accepting the report.
Right. So I'll take that back. We'll deal with that. Make sure that we're clear on that front. That will be before you as a report for your next meeting. But in the interim, right, the contents of those minutes, which we will now transform into a report, still functions as in the same way. It's a record of what happened at the December 13th hearings, and it should be sufficient, hopefully, although if you have any questions about any of the specific items that are within the miscellaneous agenda, which the panel recommended for your approval, we're here to, we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah. What we're looking for is, number one, people who did attend would review the report and make sure that it's accurate. But what we're looking for is, number one, what type of comments came from the public, what types of comments came from town department heads, and what other issues came up that may cause us to want to hold the hearing at the select board instead of hold an additional hearing at the select board. So, yeah, I propose that we vote on the December 13 minutes as a report that we assume has been reviewed by people who were in attendance, and that it is accurate. Okay, and going forward, it will be labeled a report. Okay, thank you. I move approval of November 28, 2023 and December 5, 2023 minutes of the Select Board. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Michael Sandman,
He left.
pardon me?
He's
He
absent.
left. But he'll
Oh,
be
yeah.
back.
Oh, you left. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Where am I? Paul Warren.
Aye.
Okay, and chair votes aye. Next, I move acceptance of the December 13, 2023 document labeled minutes, which we view as a report of the licensing hearing. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Mike Salmon is not here. Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Okay, next. We
I
have
look worse than you, Paul, but you sound worse than me. Sorry.
I feel fine. My voice just went away.
Okay. Okay, next, we have 26 miscellaneous items. Was there one that was taken off, Devin?
Yes. Three E is being postponed. Question of approving the authorization to hire a request from the building department for an operations manager grade T10.
Okay, 3E is taken off. Okay, so we have 25 items. Okay, I'm sorry.
You just have that language at the beginning.
Which language? Oh, okay, yeah. That's with respect to just, oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, before I go on, I'd like to, let's see. Okay, I moved, okay, I've written up a way of saying this and it's different from what you're saying here. I'd like to, first of all, move that we, since there's only one select board member in attendance, I move that we authorize the town administrator to sign his name on behalf of the select board to approve the 25 items in the miscellaneous category. Any questions about that? Or objections? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac.
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi.
Aye.
Paul Warren. Paul Warren says yes, and chair votes aye. Next, I want to go through the 25 items this way. We're going to take up approval of items 3B through 3D and 3F through 3AA. Select board members have had an opportunity to review the details of each item and a separate of each item. The details of which are in our packet. And we have, we're also approving from the separate hearing that we received a report of, minutes with respect to items 3V and 3W, which are grants of location, 3X, 3Y, and 3Z, which are common victual license, liquor licenses, and staffing and corporate changes, and 3AA, a lodging house change of agent for a residential home for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Unless the select board member has questions or comments about these 25 now items, I'll move approval in an omnibus vote. Any comments or questions? John Van Scoyac?
Thank you. I just want to raise a question for future reference. We have been doing an awful lot of approvals of conduit work in streets. And I personally, I don't know about the other members of the board, am kind of losing sight of whether we are in fact, on the one hand, celebrating a repaving of a street such as we did with Washington Street not too long ago. And it was glorious. And it was so glorious that I had to ride my bike up and down it just to appreciate how wonderful it was. That now doesn't exist anymore, at least in terms of the southern bound lane of Washington Street. It's been completely torn up. And I hope we can get a report at some point in the near future on sequencing of this type of work. I've got my fingers crossed, and I'll say a little prayer, that in fact, the only reason that we were okay with that particular sequence was with the knowledge that there's going to be the complete streets repaving of Washington Street soon. But I don't know how soon might be, but I do know that a complete repaving, which was a beautiful job, well done, smooth street, within a matter of weeks, was turned into chaos by all kinds of conduit work. So I'm going to approve these tonight, but with a footnote that it would be wonderful to have some kind of a report from our very able head of DPW as to how we figure out the sequencing of these kinds of approvals.
Okay, Miriam?
Yeah, I just want to, I want to say actually, John, she has that. I spoke with Commissioner Shute about this a while ago, and actually they knew that was going to happen to Washington Street, and that beautiful paving that you are talking about was actually just surface paving because it was in such dire need. So they repaved it, but just superficially, knowing that all this work still had to be done with
Yeah.
the plan to completely repave it afterwards. So Commissioner Shute does have all the sequencing. You can ask her for it, but at least for Washington Street, that was part of the plan from the beginning.
Yeah, I had somewhat that assumption, but I think then we need to find out, well, how much did we spend for the resurfacing repaving that lasted only a matter of weeks? I'm sorry, that's still doesn't completely sort of address my concerns, but thank you for that information.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, I move approval. All in favor, please, of those 25 items. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye,
Paul Warren.
he says.
He says aye, and chair votes aye. Okay.
Lynn.
Next are calendar items. Boards and commissions interviews. We have a candidate for the Disabilities Commission, Lynn Missick. Is that how you pronounce it?
Recheck.
Mitchek.
Recheck,
Recheck.
yes. Hi. Thank you for having me meet with you this evening. My name is Lynn Recheck. I applied to be on the Brookline Commission on Disability after my husband, Jim Recheck, passed away in September. He had been a member for many years, and I hope and want to carry on his legacy for helping to make Brookline accessible to all. He would often ask me to join the committee, but I always felt it was something very special to him. I would accompany him at times on site visits, for example, inaccessible sidewalks, to assess what could be done to make improvements. Jim was a quadriplegic since the age of 14. We were married for 40 years. Jim used a power chair, and he and I
Excuse me, in the back, could you? We won't take away from your time.
Okay, I'd have to where I left off. Jim used a power chair, and he and I encountered many obstacles and barriers to someone in a wheelchair. We always felt educating the public and elected officials was so important in creating a more accessible world. An example of this is we also often noticed a lot of people would lock their bicycles on the handicap parking poles. If a bike was attached in a handicap vehicle parked in that spot and needed to open the wheelchair van ramp, which we often had to do, it would be very difficult or impossible if a bike obstructed the access. I had noticed in the Longwood Medical area, no bike parking signs placed on some newly planted trees that were quite small. I mentioned this to Jim, and he presented the idea to the commission to see if similar signs could be made for the HP poles in Brookline. It was accepted, and now in some parts of the town, there are signs on the handicap parking poles. No bikes are to be locked. There's a handicap parking spot in front of our home, and since that sign was placed years ago, I have never seen a bike locked there. But if the signs were not there, how would someone know that by locking their bicycle would be an issue? That is why education is so important. Disabilities are varied, and some are seen and others are not seen. We need to support and be sensitive to every citizen and visitor to our town. I hope my experience with Jim will be an asset to the town if I'm accepted on the commission. I'm a retired nurse from Boston Children's Hospital. I worked there for 41 years. I retired actually during the pandemic because I had actually turned 65 at that time, and I was trying to protect Jim from any illnesses, COVID, that I could possibly catch being a nurse at the hospital. I still carry an active RN license, and I've actually applied to be a substitute school nurse in the town. So I'm waiting to hear back from Tricia regarding that. But I hope that I could be an asset if I am accepted and to carry on Jim's legacy. Thank you.
Thank you. First, I'd like to just thank you for your application. In your application, you mentioned, I saw three things I think that people probably, don't think about, or don't think about the way that you're thinking about them. The parking signs and the handicap, or the bikes on the handicap parking signs is just one issue that I would never have thought about unless, you told me about it because of your experience. So, I appreciate the fact that you're applying and that you're bringing ideas that can be implemented already. I guess the only question I have is, you said that your husband suggested you attend meetings, but did you ever?
I would sometimes listen in, but it was Jim, because of his disability and his quadriplegia, he didn't have a lot that was just for him. So I would say, oh, you do it. And we could talk about some of the issues, and I could say, well, give him some advice about what I encountered being the wife of someone who has a disability, because I experienced it along with him. And I know he enjoyed, we personally know some of the members, and he always talked about how he enjoyed being, he might've been on it for 20 years. I tried to remember how long he had been on the commission, but, and he had been sick a lot of the times he wasn't able to attend. He had been very sick many times and couldn't attend the meetings, but it was always a part for him. I think that was, but I could, like those little placards, I could offer things that he could present to the commission.
Good. Any other questions from the select board, Miriam?
Mine isn't so much a question as Highland.
Hi.
As to say that, speaking for the committee, we've discussed this at the committee, and certainly this is a select board decision, but the committee would be honored to have Lynn serve in Jim's seat. So
Thank you.
if that is in your consideration, I would like to put that into your consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the select board? John?
I just want to acknowledge quickly that I had the distinct privilege of meeting Lynn and the members of the Mitchell family at Jim's wake. And this is a terrific family. And I didn't even I didn't know that Lynn was going to apply to join the Commission on Disability, but the people who were at that wake spoke so highly of the contributions that Jim had made that it's just wonderful that we have Lynn stepping into, I won't say stepping into his shoes, but stepping into offering the same kind of service to the Commission on Disability.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, and thank you for your application.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Okay,
Have a
bye
great
now.
day. Thank you. Bye.
We will be making appointments at a later meeting, so stay tuned. Okay. Next is license renewals, public hearings, licenses for common victualler, food vendor, alcohol, entertainment, inn holder, lodging house, and secondhand articles. Who's gonna present on that?
I guess I'll start,
Okay.
and we'll kind of move through from there. So thank you, and thanks to everyone, to the board for your continued efforts on this. Within your packet, and now posted on the agenda, thankfully, this has been quite an effort with our software, is the packet regarding license renewals in Brookline for the next year, 2024. We review and renew licenses on a yearly basis in Brookline. And as part of that process, what we do is we request all the required filings from the people who have licenses. They send them in. We review them, make sure they're in order. All the departments submit reports to you, the board, on issues that may have arisen over the course of the year. And then we ask that the board authorize the issuance of, the renewal of licenses that are being renewed. And in instances where individual businesses may not have submitted all the paperwork they need to submit, given that this is the last meeting of the year, we ask that that approval be conditional on them providing that paperwork. We have this public hearing, a part of this, to ensure that members of the public obviously can have their say about the many different businesses that exist in Brookline. But what I will say on this subject is, and I say this every year, this meeting is not an opportunity for people to say, this is not, let me take it back. This meeting is not an opportunity for the board to consider not renewing a license. Not renewing a license requires adequate notice, requires due process. It requires a hearing, not this kind of hearing, a disciplinary hearing. Once you have a license, there has to be a good reason for the board to take it away. Now, you may, if you come to public comment as part of this meeting and you say, well, I have a good reason for the board to take it away. They didn't do what they said they were going to do. They're violating this or that term. I really want you to do something about it. We want to hear that. We think this is an important thing to hear, but I just want to set expectations. What we cannot do in response to that comment is say, well, gosh, I'm going to hold the license. I'm not going to issue it. That's not allowed. Instead, what we do with that is we listen to the board's concerns on that. We follow up with the board. If the board wishes, the board can then schedule at a later date a disciplinary hearing. Remember, a board can also revoke a license at any point during the year or issue appropriate punishment short of revoking a license if a licensee has violated the terms of its license or the law or anything on that sort. So I just want to set expectations because I know sometimes people have in the past come into this meeting, sort of hoping that the board would not renew someone's license because of an issue or dispute they might have with a business or enterprise. And that's not possible. But what is possible is we want to take your concerns seriously. We want to hear from you, and we want to be sure that we have all the information we need so that if the board does decide that a disciplinary hearing is necessary or a follow-up investigation or anything of that sort, that we can do that over the course of the next year. So again, you are more than welcome as part of this hearing to make a public comment. You can even say, I really don't think this business is doing what it should be doing. But you have to understand that this is not an opportunity for the board to revoke a license. That has to be done through a separate process. So I hope that expectation is set appropriately. And I want to thank you all and members of the public for being a part of this as we move through. This is tradition on the last meeting of the calendar year.
Thank you.
So what we typically do with this is that what we do with this is we take these renewals by category. In your packets and updated as of today are the licenses that are to be renewed, as well as those licensees for which there are outstanding issues. And so for those licensees, I will tee up the votes if that's okay with the chair and make sure that everyone is set on that front. Also within the packet are reports from each of the individual areas that each of the individual departments that are required to report out on the activities. You can see, for example, you may remember we held 2 different hearings this year about 2 different common victualler licenses and all alcohol licenses. The police department has a summary of what actions have been taken subsequent to that report, to those hearings, indicating, their follow-up on that, noting that those things occurred, any issues that may have happened over the course of the year. Thankfully, very few incidences have occurred over this year. But I will say, I just received a note, and I wanted to just make clear that one of the renewals that we received this year in lodging houses, we have for two separate entities, 2 separate renewals, but under one entity. We did receive a number of community complaints and concerns regarding the Pine Street Inn buildings. And Select Board Member Warren, unfortunately, has lost his voice, but he asked me in a message to just relay that he has spoken both to me and to staff, and I know a number of other Select Board members have as well, that we've spoken at length about this, and that staff is diligently working to continue with both Pine Street Inn and the community to ensure the harmonious operation of their enterprises. And so I want to be very clear that the issues that the community have raised have been heard. The Select Board has been very diligent. Members of the Select Board who have heard those concerns have been very diligent in reaching out to staff. And we are working on those accordingly to make sure that the community is moving on that front. So without any further preface, this is set to be a public hearing.
Right.
And then I do want to say one last thing, which is that Tiffany Souza, our licensing specialist, is available remotely for any questions the members of the public or the board might have. And I wanted to take this special opportunity to thank her and Rochelle Morrison, who is now promoted to a full-time licensing assistant, for all the work that they do over the year. It's a huge amount of work to license, to deal with the complex licensing schemes in this community. And it's really great to have all of their help and diligence and support. So thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Rochelle. Thank you, Devin. Thank you to the whole team who does so much good work on this. And thank you particularly, Tiffany, for sticking around for questions.
Okay. Are you going to tee up each individual category?
First, I do think you have to open the public hearing. And
okay. By the way, I want to mention that
Miriam has.
okay. There's also, we're also approving licenses for Class 1 and Class 2 motor vehicles. I did not mention that earlier. Miriam, you had a question?
Yeah, just quickly, I see the Booksmith is on there as not having gotten their paperwork in yet. Is that?
It's entirely a system error on our part. Sorry about that.
Okay.
We are working with them there where everyone is aware. No one is in danger of missing their deadlines. We've solved the problem and they've got the paperwork. We'll get it to them. We'll get it back from them shortly.
Because the books everybody got today for their Christmas presents were from this Booksmith for their holiday presents.
Okay.
So
I actually think the Booksmith, actually, the issues that we received, they just resolved them. So they're good. You can
all
renew
right,
them.
thank you. That's, I just had to check.
Just down to Village Final now, which again was our system error, and we're resolving that.
Okay.
All right.
By the way, there's also one establishment that's listed as not having completed their application, Shawarma King, which I believe is closed.
Yes.
Okay, you're aware of that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is a public hearing. I'd like to open the public hearing. I see that we have one person down for comment.
We have more.
We have more? Okay, well, bring them all on.
The first person signed up for public comment is Elizabeth Kane Tate. Elizabeth, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. You can unmute and share your video if you're comfortable, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Elizabeth Kane Tate. I live at 74 Monmouth Street. And I would like to thank the town for letting us work with Devon Fields and the help that we've gotten also from Lieutenant Gruber in dealing with the lodging houses, specifically the Pine Street Inn. I would like once again to ask the town of Brookline to take responsibility for the lodging licenses given to the Pine Street Inn houses. We live on Monmouth Street behind 3 of the houses, 1043, 1045, and 1017 Beacon Street. And there are residents in each of these homes who are not able to live on their own, either because of substance addictions or mental health issues. These tenants create issues of drugs and violence in our neighborhoods. And the Pine Street Inn has not been able or willing to properly staff the homes and seems content to leave the neighbors to deal with all of the problems of the drug dealing and drug use, physical altercations, and fights. We neighbors believe that if the Pine Street Inn screened the tenants better and made sure the tenants were suited to independent living, coupled with properly staffing the houses, which are now only staffed 11 p.m. in the evening till 7 a.m., and are only staffed during these hours due to salary caps because that they have in place in order for them to qualify for grants. If they were to do this, though, we believe the houses would be more successful and all the tenants and neighbors would be able to live peacefully. I ask the select board to please require the Pine Street Inn to follow the lodging house rules, which they are not following, which is to exercise the due care of selection of lodgers, institute and enforce such house rules as are necessary to prevent lodging houses from being a cause of complaint to the police department or a cause of nuisance and annoyance to the neighborhood. I ask you please to enforce this with the Pine Street Inn. Thank you.
The next person signed up for public comment is Elizabeth Mora. Your 3 minutes will begin when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Mora. I am recovering from COVID. I was going to come in. I also lost my voice, but we live at 49 Beals. We've been here for 21 years, as has Pine Street. For the first 15, we had really relatively few issues. And if we did have an issue, there was someone to call. To Elizabeth Kane's point, there was someone on site during the day where we could call or text and say, please go outside, there's something happening. That has not been the case for the last 5 years. The issues have escalated in frequency and in severity. Someone pulled a knife on me last year. Many of you received the video on that. We had 2 domestic altercations the night before Thanksgiving. The police are often in front of our house. There's verbal assaults, there's physical assaults. There is a manager, Lincoln Ned. He lives in 55. The problem people tend to be in 51. One idea is to move him, the night manager, from 55 to 51. But it's imperative that they Pine Street has on-site management during the day. I've recruited some other neighbors to talk about this. Some of you have received their letters. The people who live across the street got into the middle of an altercation between 2 Pine Street Inn people. One of them didn't have a phone. She didn't have a key. This gentleman ended up waiting an hour before anyone could come and open the door. It's just not, it's not acceptable as it is currently. Devon has been trying, but unless they are told that they have to do this by the town, who's the only one with any leverage in this scenario, it's just not going to happen. We can live peacefully. We did for 15 years. They need more oversight. They need an on-site presence. Thank you very much.
At this time, we have 14 virtual attendees and approximately 2 in person. Give folks a couple of minutes to either indicate they'd like to make a comment in person or use the hand raise or Q&A feature via Zoom. I don't know if you want to proceed and just keep the hearing open until you vote, or if you want to close the hearing now. It's up to you.
Well, why don't we close the hearing now? we don't usually have a lot of people speaking, so. Okay, I'll close the hearing and we'll go to each category to,
Miriam has her hand up.
pardon me?
Miriam.
Oh, Miriam.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious, and maybe Tiffany or Chaz or somebody knows the answer to this, but was there a change in ownership of the Pine Street Inn? Do we know what happened that resulted in this change in the management structure?
Miriam, I'm happy to take that question. Devin Fields, Assistant
you,
Town
Devin.
Administrator for Operations. I have been working with the Pine Street Inn and the neighbors in the surrounding area for the last year, having quarterly meetings that are run by the town. The prior year, Pine Street Inn was running those meetings at the request of the neighbors for a year quarterly as well. What we think has happened is there are some adverse effects for these residents from the pandemic, and that we're seeing kind of just a different group of residents coming in and out. And, you know, a point that has been made many times at these quarterly meetings is that it just takes a couple of people to kind of set the lodging house on a challenging path for the neighbors. So last year, you'll remember this board implemented the community guidelines document, which we used as a kind of soft tool. In addition to their license conditions, all lodging houses in Brookline, of which there are approximately 47, received those guidelines. We had a community meeting where all of the lodging house representatives were invited. As Beth Mora indicated, she's been great to work with, communicating with the town actively whenever these incidents come up. The Beale Street house was without management for a year, and then Lincoln Ned took the position on, and he has now been in that role for almost 2 years. But I think, you know, there's more work that we can do to make this a better situation for all of the residents.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, so let's proceed to approving the licenses.
All right. We'll begin at the top of the list with alcohol licenses. The approval of all alcohol licenses listed in the packet, including those for those establishments not yet open, but with the exception for one applicant that is not renewed yet, Parlor's approval would be conditional on the successful submission of a completed application package for their renewal by December 31st.
Okay, any questions from the select board? No, I move approval of the alcohol licenses with the exception that Parlor is conditional on completing its application by
December 31st.
by December 31st. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye.
All right, moving on to common victular, approval of all the renewals for 1-year renewals for all the common victular licenses, with the exception of the following 5 applicants. I know we had a discussion about one of them being closed, but we haven't received an official notice of them closing yet, so we will just be safe and have these 5 applicants. Their approval will be conditional on submitting an application and having an application approved on or before December 31st of this year. And that those applicants are Chilacates, Citra A Fresh Cafe, Shawarma King, Silk Road Uyghur Cuisine, and Village Pizza House.
Okay, I move approval of the common victular licenses, conditional on approval or conditional on completion of all the application requirements by the 5 establishments listed by town administrator. Such completion to be completed by December 31st. Okay, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac.
Excuse me. Aye.
Okay, Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye.
All right.
Okay.
Food vendors, food vendor licenses, all of whom have completed their renewal applications except one, When Pigs Fly Bakery. I note that there are this encompasses both the vendor licenses and the mobile food vendor licenses. So it will be renewal for 1 year of all of those licenses, except the renewal for When Pigs Fly Bakery is conditional on them having a completed submitted application on or before December 31st of this year.
Okay, I move approval of the food vendor licenses on the condition that When Pigs Fly will complete its application by December 31st. That's the condition on their license approval. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye.
Next is lodging houses. Only one applicant has not submitted renewal yet. That's at 16 William Street. We are in communication with that applicant. We hope to move forward. It's got price rehabilitation. So it would be approval of a 1 year renewal of these licenses. Again, with the caveat that we noted, again, all the concerns are being taken under advisement, and if investigated appropriately, if there's a need to hold a hearing, the board obviously has the power to do so in the future. But again, this is the standard renewal for 1 year for the lodging houses listed in the packet, with the conditional approval of price rehabilitation, which would be conditioned on them submitting a completed application on or before December 31st of this year.
Okay, I move approval of the lodging house licenses with the one condition on 16 William Street, that they complete their application by December 31st. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
chair votes aye.
Next up, inholders. All inholders have submitted their paperwork. There are no outstanding issues. You can just move to approve for the inholders listed in the packet for a 1 year renewal of their license.
I move approval of all of the inholder licenses. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye.
Next up, a group we typically take together, antiques and secondhand goods licenses. Only one applicant has not completed the renewal process for the reasons we outlined. That will be taken care of. So for Village Vinyl, then the approval would be conditional on them submitting a completed application on or before December 31st of this year.
That's the Village Vine?
Vinyl.
Oh, vinyl. Okay, I move approval of the secondhand items licenses
And antiquities.
and
Oh,
antiquities.
sorry, antiques. I'm sorry.
I was wondering, do
Antiquities, yeah.
we have a Roman stadium in
Right,
town?
the Elgin marbles here.
Okay, let's see, where are we? Okay, I move approval of the secondhand secondhand articles and the antiques stores. All in favor, with the condition that Village Vinyl completes its application by December 31st. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye.
Last, Class 1 and Class 2 secondhand motor vehicles. Taken together, all of their paperwork is current. There are no outstanding issues. So you would move the approval for a 1 year renewal of the Class 1 and Class 2 secondhand motor vehicle licenses.
Okay, I move approval of Class 1 and Class 2 motor vehicle licenses. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye.
And I apologize. We have one last one, which is entertainment.
Oh, yes.
Yes, entertainment. There are no outstanding entertainment issues. So we move just approval of the entertainment licenses for the for a 1 year renewal of the entertainment licenses as set forth in the packet.
Okay. I move approval of the entertainment licenses as set forth in the packet. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye.
That
Okay.
concludes the 2024 relicensing hearing for all of those categories.
Good. Thank you. And thank you, Tiffany and Devin and Rochelle, right? And everyone else involved in this very big undertaking. Okay, next, we have National Community Custom Questions. Those are the questions that we're going to include in the National Community Survey related to specific issues here in Brookline that we're interested in getting some input from the public on.
I think
Devin?
you might have a different agenda.
Okay,
So we are moving on to marijuana license fees.
okay, sorry. Um, So to help me go through the agenda, I do my own notes, and sometimes my notes aren't consistent with the official notes. So I apologize for that. So okay, departmental license fees. Okay, question of making changes to the following departmental fee schedule under the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 22F. And we're talking about marijuana license fee. So is there going to be a presentation?
Yes.
Hi, Bernard. Right, Melissa Goff, Deputy Town
Oh, hi, Melissa.
Administrator. So now that we are dealing with the change in regulations and the host community fees with the retailers, we felt that we needed to institute or reinstitute the licensing fee for marijuana establishments. When prior to the current arrangements with host community agreements, we had a license fee that then we modified to acknowledge the host community fees that were covering most of our expenses. And so since that is no longer the case, we are looking at the licensing fee to help us with the costs associated with the regulatory environment and the annual work that town staff does to support the industry. So you'll see a memo from me along with the backup in the packet and a proposed vote for a $20,000 license fee for recreation.
A public hearing. The next one is. Any questions from the select board? No? Okay. Okay, then I'd like to move approval pursuant to, I'm sorry, yes. Yeah, why not?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I will try to be very brief. Thank you. The licensees, and I'll speak from my client Sanctuary. I'm Jeffrey Allen. I represent Sanctuary Medicinals, but Jennifer's here for Netter and Mission, and I believe Adam's also here. The licensees are together in believing that unfortunately this proposed increase in fees is contrary to the regulatory scheme contained in Mass General Laws. We believe this fee is unlawful and inappropriate. I might add, as a practical matter, it's 5 times more than any fee anywhere in the Commonwealth. And in fact, most communities, in accordance with the legislation, are moving towards no fee for renewal and asserting the cost of renewal into a community impact fee under the legislation. You don't have to go far, 3 miles up the road, I think, go west to Newton where there's no renewal fee, but whatever costs in renewing the license are billed as community impact fees. And I think to keep it quite simple, I can quote one sentence from the controlling legislation, which is in the acts of 2022, so fairly new, became effective in November of 22. But this is the cannabis control legislation that reworked the whole regulatory scheme. And this legislation contains the following sentence. And I think this sentence says it all. Notwithstanding any general or special law to the contrary, the community impact fee shall encompass all payments and obligations between the host community and the marijuana establishment. So the legislation is quite clear. that it supersedes all other statutory provisions, and it bundles into one, that all community impact fees are the only exchange of funds between the municipality and the licensee.
Telling me we can't charge you for water?
If you'd let me finish.
I'm sorry, I just had a question.
The legislation goes on to say regularly reoccurring fees like water, taxes, and the like, those but does not include, it does not, in its list of reoccurring, does not talk about licensing fees, but it does talk about water and specifically, and taxes specifically. And when Jennifer comes up, there's one other in there that I can't remember, she might remember, but it's very specific. And the reason why this is important is because under community impact fees, there's a specific mechanism how they're charged. And to be brief, they're charged by the municipality to the licensees. In this case, it would be January, within 30 days of the renewal. We would get a bill from Brookline for community impact fees. And in fact, it's set forth in the new host community agreement that we'll talk about, I guess, in a few minutes. But so we get a bill in 30 days. We have a right to dispute the entire bill, portions of the bills, or so forth. And there's a mechanism to resolve disputes. And so that's how community impact fees are charged. It's also important to note that community impact fees, the only charge you can assess, it has to do with those reasonably created by each location separately. They're not lumped together. And Ms. Goff was correct in her memo to you, in which she says what's being proposed here is the cost of regulating the industry or dealing with the industry. That is not appropriate charge to assess a licensee under the new legislation. So there are some items on her spreadsheet that might very well be community impact fees, such as the inspections, such as items like that, but not regulating the industry. But more importantly is the sunset provision in the legislation. Community impact fees can only be charged for 8 years of operation. And the concept, if you go back into the legislative history, is to treat the retail sale of cannabis like the retail sale of anything else, liquor, bread, milk, and I certainly would hope that as we go towards that goal in Brookline, that next year when you do your licenses in groups, cannabis will be in there as part of the groups as opposed to being separated out. So that's just an editorial comment. I apologize.
Wrap up.
I am going to wrap up. So we believe firmly, and we don't even believe, frankly, it's a closed case. We believe this fee is unlawful. It's violative of the legislation adopted, the acts of 2022. And we think it's unfortunate we're moving in this direction. We would hope to move under the new legislation and have a process that we can work together with. But unfortunately, this does not mesh with the regulations. If you pass it, we'll discuss with our clients what they want to do, but we haven't had that discussion yet. That would be premature. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer, are you wanting to speak too?
Yes.
Jennifer
Not a
DePazzo,
public hearing, so.
right, Jennifer DePazzo Gilbert. I represent Netta and Mission. I want to say thank you so much to Jonathan Simpson for working with us to get a host of community agreement and license conditions that we believe were negotiated in good faith and that meet the new requirements of the statute. With respect to the fee, we do have concerns with the amount. As Jeffrey said, Newton and Watertown and a few other communities have stopped charging any renewal fee. If regulating the industry is an impact, it must be charged as an impact fee with an invoice for a certain amount of time under the statute, 8 years from when the license was first issued only, And there has to be a right of appeal for the retailers to challenge any particular impact fee. So we do have concerns with the legality of it. Going from $450 a year for the retail side to $20,000 seems excessive. Nevertheless, I do want to say that we understand that if that, whatever amount is adopted this evening will be paid by NETA and Mission as instructed by the town by the end of the month. So thank you for letting us speak.
Thank you. Okay. 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 We'll put that in his permanent file. Okay. Chaz, you want to?
Yeah, first I want to thank, I also want to thank the current licensees and the retailers for that process. We were very grateful for your outreach and for your efforts in making that as smooth as possible. So thank you. That worked very well. And I also want to be very clear that we welcome the industry and the folks who you have been good neighbors. You have been working with us in this new industry to try and develop an appropriate way forward so that cannabis is treated like any other legal substance that is allowed within the Commonwealth. We've often used in our conversations with you and with others the comparison to package stores, right? Cannabis, by every major account, is less addictive and less damaging to health and safety than tobacco and alcohol, and yet is regulated differently because of the we'll call it the infinite wisdom of the federal government. So we want to be good partners on this, and we respect your position on this. We also respectfully disagree with on this front about license fees in particular. Package stores pay license fees. Secondhand goods stores pay license fees. Pretty much every business in town pays a license fee. The idea that this is not a regularly recurring fee, as that law says, with its line and the like, I don't think passes the smell test. The idea that you can't charge anything for regulating a highly, historically volatile industry, an industry that currently still involves Schedule I federal substances, I don't think passes the smell test. But I understand and respect the position, because the purpose of that law, as you pointed out, was to prevent predatory and unfortunate actions that certain communities took with regard to cannabis that made it difficult to operate and treated the businesses differently. Brookline has never been of a mind to do that and doesn't want to be of a mind to do that, which is why this license fee was developed using the actual costs to regulate the industry under what we understand is allowed as part of every other license scheme. And if you look, we took those numbers and we made sure that they were not right up to the line. We calculated our costs, and then we said, we're not going to charge up to the line. We want to charge what a reasonable fee is. And we understand that number looks high. The cost of doing business in Brookline is high. And we're not the only ones that charge license fees. I believe Chelsea's fee is what, $5,000? The state charges a fee. There are costs to doing business in a new industry. What our commitment has been to you throughout this process and to the community throughout this process is the normalization of cannabis operations to ensure an effective and appropriate working environment. So we will continue to work with you on this. We will continue to evaluate and be good partners in this process. What we are telling you is this is the cost of regulation at this juncture. This is where we are on this. This is how we got there. We're not hiding the ball. We're not out for, we're not out for this, we're not out for the things that basically led to this law being passed in the first place, which was communities using this as a piggy bank. That's not an appropriate way to welcome businesses into the community, and that's not what we want to do. So we appreciate our differences of opinion on this. We want to work collaboratively with you on it, and we do appreciate you taking the time to come out. But I do think it's important to note that wherever we fall on this, the town does take the position that if cannabis is to be treated like every other business, cannabis must be licensed like every other business, which means it has to pay a fee. I think where we might disagree ultimately is on the number, and that's fine. Maybe we have a fight about that. But I don't think the idea that a business is above a licensing regime is going to fly. So we'll continue to work with you, and we look forward to, again, we appreciate your good partnership in all this as the industry has evolved, and we continue to work with you.
And let's not have a fight about the amount, but let's have a discussion. Okay. Okay, wait, if you can. Okay, Jeffrey.
Do members of the board, we have here Jonathan Simpson, recently lauded first assistant town council. He's remote. If members of the board, and Melissa is here, I'm here. And Devin is here. If members of the board have any questions about this.
Is someone, is that Miriam? I heard someone speak up. Okay, unless there are any further questions from the board, I'll move approval of the license fee. Seeing none, okay. So pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 22F, I move approval of the $20,000 license fee for retail marijuana licenses and $11,000 for medical marijuana licenses. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Miriam I'm sorry, and John Van Scoyac?
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi?
Aye.
Paul Warren?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
We
Thank
are
you.
10 minutes early for the next agenda item, which is the public hearing. Apologies. We were a rare select board moving quickly. So
That's next, isn't it?
Is that a public hearing? Is that part of the is that part of the noticed
Yeah,
agenda?
the
item?
item is a public hearing,
Okay.
so you could.
Yeah, let's hold it. Let's just for the sake of making sure folks have time. That's noticed at 6:45.
This could be a good opportunity to move to the final item, which is the special town meeting follow-up.
Yes, that would be great. Melissa, do you want to take point on that?
Sure. You should have in your packet a memo from me with the actions of town meeting, and then I've noted in the select board action column whether or not an item required follow-up for the select board, whether it be to form a committee or to take a vote. We have a few instances where there is some work or some information that we would need in order to understand how to move forward. The first is the home rule petition for the water and sewer discount rates. As you may recall, town meeting voted to refer that back to the select board. So I think staff is looking for guidance on whether or not we would be trying to work with our legislative delegation on an appropriate format for a refiling of a home rule petition, or if there's any other work that the select board would like to see before pursuing that as an option.
What do people think, Miriam?
There, I mean, I think I know the answer, but is there any way to get this done without a home rule petition?
So I think if we
No.
weren't pursuing, I think if we weren't pursuing a home rule petition, we likely wouldn't be able to continue the current program that we're offering. So I think that's why we're wanting to make sure that we have some kind of guidance from the board on this.
Okay, if we pursue a home rule petition, we are precluded from taking other steps? Is that what?
So the recommendation from town council was kind of a boot and suspenders approach to the current program that we offer to make sure that the home rule petition would make sure that the program that we run, we could currently run. If we didn't try and continue to pursue home rule legislation, I would think that, and I don't want to speak for town council, but I think they may recommend that we discontinue the program.
Okay, Paul?
I'm going to try to speak. It's difficult, but this is water and sewer home rule, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we absolutely need to develop the program with Commissioner Shute and her advisory committee on water and sewer rates, and then put forward another home rule petition. That's what we need to do. I can't speak, and I have a passion about this. I'd like to table this for the next meeting so that we can have a more detailed discussion about next steps. But this thing we can't stop offering water and sewer discounts to our seniors. And we absolutely need to expand the program and investigate options for expanding the program. What town meeting said was that they felt that home rule petitions wasted the time of the legislature, which is ironic because we're going to now talk about rent control, and they didn't say it about that, but that's beside the point. But you know, their guidance was come back with a more detailed proposal that can go to the legislature, and that was the advice of Representative Vitolo as well. So I think we absolutely need to move forward, put the study group together, have them come up with the program recommendation, write the warrant article, the home rule petition for submission for the May warrant. That's what my recommendation would be, and I'd like to see happen.
Okay, yeah, I think, you know, in terms of some of these items that don't have specific votes that are required, you know, these are things that we would typically add to the board's future list so that it's, you know, a docketed agenda item that we can revisit. So I'll talk to Commissioner Galantine about, I'm sorry, Commissioner Shute about, you know, the work of the committee and then a potential warrant article that we could preview for the board in advance of filing it.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take this off of tonight's agenda and defer
It's
to
just
later.
like an overview item. Melissa's kind of giving you the recap of everything that's happened, and then they'll be discussed at future meetings.
Okay.
So the next item is the payroll division that was recently voted by town meeting. The way we're envisioning implementing this is that we would be rolling it into the fiscal 25 budget. And the only action that would be required would be for the board to establish the payroll division as a department, as a division head level position, which we would likely put in front of the board when we do annual appointments, because then we're also making votes for non-union and mid-management technical pay plan changes. And so this would be an appropriate change to present to the board at that time. So no further action, but I just wanted people to understand kind of how we're planning on implementing that particular proposal. And then the only other item that requires the board action is for a warrant article 16, which is the home rule petition on rent control. I believe Devin got a certified copy of the petition from the clerk's office. I'm not sure if it's in proper form yet, but we would need the board to vote for us to submit this to the state legislator.
And that is on your agenda for tonight.
Okay. Sorry, Devin. Okay, any discussion from the select board regarding warrant article 16 and putting that forward to the state legislature for action?
Well,
John?
I thought I heard Melissa say we need to make sure it's in the correct form. Are we sure?
We
it's
have
the
it in
correct form?
filing. Yes, we have it in filing form.
Okay. Then I don't have any questions.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, I guess I'll move. I'll make a motion. Let me put it this way. The select board voted no action by a vote of 4-1, but town meeting voted otherwise by a thin margin. I think that, however, we are obligated to send it on to its certain demise in the legislature. So all in favor of transmitting warrant article 16 on rent control to the legislature, please indicate by voting aye. John Van Scoyac?
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi?
But I take issue with the framing, Bernard. So I really have to, I vote aye, but with my comment that I think the framing was not appropriate.
Just stating the facts, ma'am. Okay.
Not a fact.
Paul Warren?
An unqualified aye.
Okay, and chair votes aye. Okay.
Everything else on the warrant was self-executing mostly.
Yeah.
So congratulations on another successful town meeting and to you and town meeting.
Okay, great. Okay, we still have 5 minutes before our noticed hearing.
Could we take a 5-minute break?
4 minutes?
You can take a
Okay.
break. Yeah.
4-minute break.
4-minute break.
4-minute
See you at
break.
6:45. members of the board are back virtually. Give me a second. Paul, there's Miriam. We'll just give John a second. The board is back.
Who's gonna make a presentation for us?
We've moved through the process of for license renewal. The extent that the renewal applicants are all here, represented by counsel. We believe that they have complied with all the requirements. Jonathan, why don't you walk through it and instead of letting me do it?
Sure thing. Good evening, everyone. Jonathan Simpson, First Assistant Town Council. I'm happy to report that I've been able to work with the retailers throughout the year, but in particular the last couple weeks, to bring you a package of documents that is just about complete. One of the, as you know from the earlier discussion, we are under a new regulatory regime now with cannabis licensing, and most particularly how host community agreements, an agreement we are required to enter into with every retailer, every license holder in the town. One of the new requirements of the regulation is effectively that all conditions of operation are supposed to now reside within the host community agreement, whereas previously Brookline had kind of split it up between there were conditions in the host community agreement and there were conditions in the license. So the packet of documents that you have includes, as an example, the NETA universe of documents, which is going to consist of a license, which will be fairly brief because it won't really contain much in the way of conditions. Its most fundamental condition will simply be a condition that if a license holder doesn't conform with the conditions in the host community agreement, the board reserves the right to take any and all action appropriate under its powers as a licensing authority, including suspension or even revocation of the license. The other documents, and these are the more important parts of the packet for our purposes, are the new host community agreement and Exhibit A to that host community agreement, which is now where virtually all of the conditions are going to reside. These, as I said, you have the NETA one, and I'm emphasizing the NETA one because we were fortunate enough to be able to get to a final agreed upon set of documents for NETA far enough in advance of this meeting that I knew you'd have them in your normal course of business so that you're able to review them. There are certain site-specific conditions in that Exhibit A that are specific to NETA. Each retailer will have a basically identical set of documents, but their conditions will be slightly different based mostly on where they're located and whether either their location or the setup of their location necessitates certain additional conditioning by the town. The obvious one with NETA is NETA has a parking lot, and NETA's parking lot, there are certain conditions that we've included related to that parking lot, whether that it needs to have certain mirrors so that people inside the building can view the entire parking lot at all times, that its parking lot be striped, that sort of thing. But basically what you're looking at for NETA, minus the site-specific NETA conditions, are also going to be applied to all of the retailers. So you're looking at what's going to be the conditions by and large for all 4 retailers when you're looking at the NETA documents. And if I'm just gonna walk through very quickly the way that, now that I've told you how the structure is going to change, the conditions themselves change only in a few few ways of any substance. Mostly what we tried to do, and I say we with great intention because we were working as partners with the retailers on this, is that we basically just had all of the conditions from either the old host community agreement or the license migrate into this new Exhibit A. So the town, with the exception of the few things I'm going to get into, the town is not, none of the conditions are changing at this point. They're all staying the same. They're just going to be in a different place. And we do, but we do allow in the future in the new host community agreements for the board to relax certain conditions. That's sort of a one-way ratchet without amending the host community agreement. Because it's now in a host community agreement that will be executed as a written instrument, any tightening of conditions or adding any additional conditions in the future will require us to amend that host community agreement. It's not the biggest deal, but it will be not something that you would do exactly the same way that you amend a license's conditions. So that's the big picture that you have. But the specific changes that I did want to call out, because I do think they're important for the board to take note of them, is there are certain changes to the hours of operation. We have elected to make the hours of operation uniform across all 4 retailers. We believe that over the last several years, Netta and Sanctuary have demonstrated that an additional hour of operation at the end of the day does not result in excessive detriment or impact to the neighborhood. And we feel that it is only therefore fair to allow for all 4 retailers to operate within those hours of operation. So that's one of the changes. An additional change is previously the marijuana retailer could not be open on Memorial Day or the day after Christmas. We have the new license will allow that to will remove those restrictions, and they will be allowed to be open on Memorial Day and the day after Christmas, but they will all still be required to be closed on Thanksgiving Day and Christmas Day. So we're going from 4 days they had to be closed to only 2 days they had to be closed. Previously there was a requirement that all of the retailers hold a community meeting every year. We have heard from the retailers, and we have verified this ourselves, that these community meetings were never particularly well attended as the years went on and the operations became more a part of the fabric of the community. And so the retailers have asked that rather than make it a requirement, that they will have a yearly community meeting if the board requested that they do so. And at this point, like I said, because we think the operations are, with the exception of Calm Avenue Canna, the operations have been running for many years at this point. And we don't see any reason at this point that you would need to require a community meeting. But again, you'll have the discretion to do so under that condition in the future. They just don't have to have them. Previously, there was a requirement that all retailers have an officer on site at all times. This was, and it was funded by the retailers. We had extensive discussions about that. We have been in communication with the police department, and the retailers had requested, had also, and you'll see this pattern will be repeated several times during my discussion here, is that the retailers have asked that rather than be a across the board requirement, that it be relaxed slightly to be at the request of the town. That so here it would be a request by the chief of police that an officer be present on site. This particular requirement is also something that we believe fits better with the new regulations that I referenced. The new regulations allow conditions, they consider them sort of per se reasonable if they are requested by the chief law enforcement officer and supported in writing. So we believe that if the chief elects to submit to you in writing her reasons and explanation for why she believes a police detail is warranted at any of the retailers, then you are empowered under the new license conditions to ask for one. But as of right now, but it would represent a change if the chief doesn't make that request. They would no longer have to provide those police details. And finally, and I apologize, this is going to get a little technical. All of the retailers, excuse me, are required to provide a TDMP, a Transportation Demand Management Plan. It's a very extensive document. It had a number of different components. The compiling and submitting it was somewhat onerous. Reviewing it on town side also required a certain amount of staff time. We still believe they're valuable. I mean, these are all four of these retailers are in fairly, busy areas of town. Transportation is certainly always a concern, whether it's transportation by customers, transportation by courier and delivery operators, transportation by ride shares that might be dropping customers off or picking them up, transportation by employees. It's all important. However, we've worked with the retailer to get both of our interests met here. And basically, the new condition will be, rather than submit a new TDMP every single year, the retailers will be allowed to operate under the current TDMP that is in place. And we may, if we want, work together to craft a new one to put in place. However, the retailers have asked to remove two aspects of that we had put into the Transportation Demand Management Plan in the past. One of which was the continued performance monitoring related to transportation. This is something that our own transportation department has said they don't need from the retailers, but collecting it was onerous enough that the retailers asked that it be taken out. And they also asked that they had been required to perform what are known as customer intercept surveys. Basically, they were supposed to stop a certain number of their customers and sort of give them a quick survey focused mostly on how they got there, how they intended to get home, whether they would consider other methods of transportation, what would incentivize that. These surveys were causing a considerable amount of consternation at both the retailers and the customers because they were seen as excessively invasive of privacy, particularly when you're purchasing a product that, as the town administrator noted, is still a controlled substance at the federal level. And it was a particularly acute at NETA, which is, of course, a medical marijuana provider, as well as a recreational marijuana provider. So the retailers asked, and we agreed that we would drop that requirement in the current Transportation Demand Management Plan. And so we will still have a Transportation Demand Management Plan. It will just lose a few branches off the tree, and we will not be requiring them to resubmit one every year. But although we may work with them to come up with a new one if we feel that it's warranted in the future. So those are really the only ways that things are going to shift here. With of course the new situation we will no longer, under the host community agreement, be charging the same community impact fee that we were previously charging. That was categorically ruled impermissible in the new regulations. So that had to change. We have the option to charge a community impact fee under the new regulations if we want to, but it's a very different process in doing so. And then we cannot simply say you pay 3% of your receipts as we did before. And there are several other requirements from the old host community agreements that were also dropped because they were impermissible. There was requirements for payments to the Brookline Community Foundation in certain of the agreements that is no longer permissible. You cannot require a retailer to make payments of any kind to a third party under a host community agreement. So we dropped that requirement as well. But that's how things have changed. And I'm going to stay on that word for one more second and say and ask with respect to changes, there are some, like I said, some changes are going to have to be made from the NETA documents that you're looking at to fit the other 3 retailers. And just because of the timing of everything, we don't have final agreed upon by the retailers and the town documents for those 3 other retailers to put in front of you today in an executable form, but we are so close. So we believe the votes, Bernard, that you have reflect that situation. Whereas we were, as is customary, we'll be asking you to empower the town administrator to execute these host community agreements on your behalf. So we're just asking that you're with the vote we propose, you'd recognize that you're entering into these host community agreements, understanding that there will be small changes made. To the extent changes are going to be made, they are going to be small, site specific, and will almost all be in the form I described earlier of if there was previously a requirement, it will be slightly loosened to a required at the request of the town sort of thing. So it's not an ongoing obligation no matter what. It's if the town deems it necessary, the retailers will comply, but they don't want to just have the obligation baked in. So that's what we're hoping to reach, to have you all do today, is that to empower me and Chaz to finish these negotiations with the retailers. You vote to execute, you vote to approve the HCA with NETA and empower Chaz to execute it, Town Administrator Carey to execute it. And then for the other retailers, you vote to execute it conditional on, you vote to empower Town Administrator Carey to execute it once Town Council has approved the version to be executed. And then so it will be slightly different in some of the details. Again, regarding the NETA specific stuff will come out. There'll be a few additional site specific details that will go in, but by and large, everything is preserved with the exception of those 4 or 5 matters that I called out before. I've talked for a long time. I apologize that I had to go on. We have the council for all 4 of the retailers here to also answer your questions, but I'm happy to take the first crack at anything you all want to ask. Paul, I see you have your hand up.
Paul, okay, before we go into the hearing, I'll hear from the select board. Paul?
I thank you. I had some tea. I think I can speak. Thank you, Jonathan, for the description. I was tracking with you on, you had Exhibit A, it's an example, it's done for NETA. It would be the basis for the other operators. But then you said something that caught me a little bit off guard. You said, we're still negotiating. What are you negotiating? Because if you're still negotiating, that means you haven't settled on the terms and the conditions. And I'd like to understand that, because I'd be hesitant to approve something if we don't know if the negotiations haven't been finalized.
I appreciate the caution. It actually is different for each retailer. For Sanctuary and for Mission, there really isn't any negotiation yet. I simply wasn't able to get you the documents in final form to have before you at the meeting today, but they are more or less in my inbox right now. So there's no negotiation left to do. The retailers have agreed to the various conditions, and like you said, Paul, they very much mirror NETA's in all of the important aspects that aren't site specific. The Com Avenue Canna is just a little bit different. As you know, it is an extremely new operation. It's only been operating for a few weeks. So I've been working with Adam today to go through the conditions, and there are a few with respect to Com Avenue Canna that he wants to sort of take a second look at and possibly relax, because of the operation is so new and is a sort of he just wants to sort of figure out whether or not there's some of those are fit to be fit their operation exactly. Okay. Again, so I think that there, Paul, I think you are right that there is some negotiation happening, but I do want to be careful to say that everything that Adam has sort of raised a question about, it's all just, is this something that we need to have be a requirement, or is it something we should simply have be at the board's discretion? So that is
So-
the one where I would say we are still.
Okay, just one quick follow-up. I could just, I'm a little uncomfortable voting and approving on something that we haven't seen. You know, for each one is pretty specific, and the conditions are specific to each location. Is this something that we can do a conditional approval tonight and then actually approve the agreements when we see the finalized versions when we meet in January? Is there
Yeah,
any
that's what we-
issue with waiting?
Yeah, the idea was that we would give conditional approval on completion of all the documents and have some procedure whereby if town council can't certify that they've been successful in completing or negotiating the documents, that we would be able to take it up.
Yeah, so Bernard, would we be able to see the final documents at the next select board meeting to say, yes, now we give final approval? Is that what the conditional approval would be?
Yes, now
Sorry. Go ahead, Jonathan.
okay.
Can I, Jonathan, you
Wait.
can jump in if you want, but so these.
Wait, hold on, wait.
Yeah.
Let me keep this under control.
Yeah, we needed the license in January, not after January 1. That was the only point I wanted to make.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Bernard.
Okay, wait, sit down, let Jonathan respond. Jonathan, you've
intention-
heard what the concern is. It has to be.
Absolutely. And I think, and I believe that you can and should issue the license, all 4 licenses today, even Com Avenue Canas. You can renew those licenses, no problem. That renewal of the license itself doesn't have any of these conditions that we're still negotiating. You can renew the license, allow the facilities to continue to operate without question. And then it is a matter of, it will likely be finished before the end of the calendar year, the negotiations. You simply won't have executed the host community agreement before the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Which I think is completely legitimate, and I think we'd be happy to do it like that if you want to make sure to see them again before you vote to authorize execution. I think we can make that work as well. I do agree, echo Jennifer, that we do not believe we need to hold up the license.
Okay, okay, so this is a tripartite agreement, license, host community agreement, and Exhibit A. And the license can stand separate as something we approve that gives them the opportunity or the ability to go forward.
I would not want it to stand separate forever. I think
No, of course not.
the minuscule window of time it will need to stand separately is fine.
Okay. Okay. Jeffrey, could you sit down and
all right.
let's go through this in normal order?
That, I know, but here's the problem, Mr. Chairman. As your counsel has told you, now the conditions can't be on the license, they have to be on the HCA. So under this scenario, we thought that he was going to delegate to, as he suggested, we're all finished negotiating, we have total agreement with Jonathan. But what will happen is, when our new license comes in January 1, if this isn't executed, there's no conditions on the license.
Okay, okay.
You follow?
My understanding is that Chaz is going to be the executioner or execute the documents.
But it has to be executed before January 1.
And he'll do it before the weekend, probably, okay, or quickly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's the aim, and we have language to delegate authority to him to do that. Okay, okay. Sit down so I can keep control of this hearing. Okay, Jonathan, you have anything else to say?
I do want to make sure I'm getting all of you what you want. I think that certainly we will circulate the agreements that are finalized as soon as they are finalized. And and if it is important, and I agree with, and I think Jeffrey's interpretation is a valid one. So I support your interpretation, Mr. Chairman, that we set things in motion to allow execution of the HCAs before the end of the year, and that board member Warren will get to see them in the short term, and then certainly we can put it on the agenda to review them at the first meeting of the new year. And any concerns at that time we can begin to address. But like I said, they will vary. The variations are minor from what you're looking at with the NETA agreement. So I do not want to get hung up unnecessarily on those.
Okay. Yes, Devin?
Adam has his hand up, as does John.
Oh, I'm sorry. Adam Baranowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, for the record, Adam Barnowski. I'm here on behalf of ComApp Canada. And I'd like to thank you all and thank Attorney Simpson for working through this to kind of try to figure out the best way to have some common sense conditions that work for the practical effects of the retail, and also I think will help to hone the efficiencies for the town. Just to reiterate what Attorney Simpson said, what we're trying to do is figure out a way to keep all of the protections that the town was seeking intact, but instead of making several of them compulsory, make them at the request, kind of like police details. If instead of requiring them, if the town needs them, then it's something that we can include. And there's a few provisions that, as you look through the conditions, might be applicable to this sort of arrangement where it's a lot of work for the licensee, and frankly, it might be a lot of unnecessary review and work for the town where it might not be needed. So we're trying to figure out a way to, again, reserve all of the protections for the town while making sure that some of these practical operational issues are met. So we've had some really productive discussions, and it sounds like, like Attorney Simpson said, it's more so just getting the language right. So we're happy to do anything that you like. We do, one piece of it that was more material was the increase in an hour, which I think is going to be consistent across the retailers. For that reason, the sooner that these are approved and signed off, the better. But we'll certainly, rely on the process that you all deem, best. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. I see John Van Scoyak's hand is up.
Yes.
And,
Thank you very much.
okay, there's another hand up which I can't identify.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'll lower it just to.
No. Okay.
But I would like to just ask a question that is driven by what happened earlier during the discussion of the licensing fee. We heard the attorneys speak very clearly that they disagree with the licensing fee. I mean, it felt to me as though they're disagreeing with the amount, but maybe also, some other aspect of it in terms of the basis on which we were charging the fee. By signing the host community agreements, do they waive their disagreement over the licensing fees?
No.
They do not. A host community agreement cannot require that a company waive its right to challenge any of this. The retailers have made the same arguments to you that they made to me, and we have agreed that this is not the forum to really have this debate, notwithstanding the speech you just got, but that they have the right to bring a challenge in the future. That this is that our fee structure is impermissible. But we think it's best for everyone that we reach an agreement, as much of an agreement as we can, that will allow operations to continue, and hopefully will let us get to sort of a for lack of a better cliche, a win-win, where ideally the retailers would ultimately elect to come over to the town side on this and recognize that this fee structure works for them. That may be wishful thinking, but it's where I am, and if we have to fight about it in court, that's something we're willing to do.
Thanks for that answer. Thanks for that answer.
Okay, Paul.
Yes, thank you. So Jonathan, I just want to go back to your point about negotiations still taking place. It's only with ComApp Cana and Attorney Barnowski, right? I'm sorry if I butchered your name. Is that correct? Or is the schedule and conditions the same for the already settled for the other operators, the other three?
It is, yes.
Okay, all right. So that's fine. So I have one question, because the things that Adam's easy for me to pronounce, that Adam had said, sounded like those were things that were already discussed with Netter and Sanctuary, like adding the hour, making it a request for a detail as opposed to compulsory, and the traffic detail thing. Could you give an example of something that's still being negotiated for comment
Certainly.
that might be different than what's in the other three?
There, one thing that had kind of cropped up is that, as I said before, I had basically just migrated all of the conditions from ComApp Canada's old license into this new document. And there were a few transportation related sub-conditions related to bike racks. And Adam pointed out in our discussions today that there has been a sort of understanding that because of where ComApp Canada is located and there are public bike racks, that those conditions don't need to continue. But we're still negotiating that point. I mean, it's all well and good that Adam tells me that, but I have to, of course, make sure that it works for the town side. So that's the level of things we're talking.
Okay, so you're really you're cleaning it up. It's not like you want a condition that's going to add 2 more hours to the day or have a different holiday schedule or that we're not talking substantive things. We're talking essentially just adjudication and cleanup. Is that essentially?
I think cleanup is a great way to describe it.
Okay, all right, thank you. I hear negotiation and I hear he wants to be open 365 days a year. That's what I hear. Okay, thank you.
You should hear what else he wants to sell there. No.
Okay, so we have final agreement on the 3 retailers, Sanctuary, Netta, and Commonwealth.
Sanctuary, Netta, and Mission.
And Mission, I'm sorry. So there's no issue there. We can approve the license, which would include the completed negotiated host community agreement and Exhibit A, which we haven't seen yet, but you can provide that to us.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. With respect to Commonwealth Canada, there's still a number of issues that are outstanding, which we haven't seen. Could you give us a list of those in addition to the bike racks?
Sure. I just need to pull it up.
And if we agree that they are minor, I think we can sort of delegate to you the completion of the negotiations.
Sure. So I don't want, and Adam is here, of course, as well. And the list that I have it was more of a sort of off the top of his head. Adam, I don't know if you want to speak to the ones that you think are
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So one is a holdover. While ComApp Canada is a new business opening to the town, you might recall that this business originally filed with the town in 2018. So, and the HCA was originally executed in 2018, which was a different time period really for the community and the industry. So there's some holdovers from that time. For example, there was a requirement for an annual financial audit to be included in the renewal package. And I think that might have been a requirement based upon the 3% that was required under the old HCA. And it seems to me like an audited financial statement is something that's somewhat burdensome to provide to the community. I don't know if the town needs it or wants it. So the thought there was, okay, well, we can keep that in, but how about if the town requests it and there's some sort of basis for them wanting it. If they don't want it, let's not spend the time and money to prepare it and give it to the town, and they have to have the burden of reviewing this. Same thing for some of the TDMP monitoring. Again, it should be required when the town requests if there are traffic issues. The industry has changed in a lot of ways so that this is like a lot more like a liquor store, like a traditional retailer, that we don't have the influx of cars and traffic that might have occurred if this was a standalone cannabis company in a town where there were no others in Greater Boston, which was the case here, 8 years ago. So things like that. That's really kind of going down the list. A lot of those things where we're not looking to remove them. I have the CCC renewal application. Is that a requirement? Is that something the town wants to see, or would they rather just see that it's been approved by the CCC for the related year. That's pretty much it.
Okay, Jonathan, are these items that there are no disagreement on the part of the town?
I don't want to over, I don't know. I haven't talked to the departments that would potentially need this information. I can certainly see Adam's point, but the reason why I'm not giving you a final agreement with ComAv Canna is when he raised these points today, I was like, by and large, I was like, that's interesting. We can talk about that some more. I don't think any of these are that substantial, but I need to go. I'm not agreeing to any of them, but I have to hear more about them. And again, and I think if you notice the way Adam was phrasing a lot of this, it's even less this must change. It's why do you need this? And it might be a situation where when I talk to the relevant department and I can bring that information back to Adam and his client, it'll make more sense, particularly, make more sense for 2023. And rather than in 2018, but still makes sense in 2020.
But Jonathan, my understanding of what Adam said was that they don't disagree with keeping those provisions in. It's that it's subject to the town asking for the particular report or the detail or whatever.
Exactly, and I think that mitigates any real concern I have about finishing up these negotiations, even more, which is that at most we're just going to slightly tweak it to we don't.
I'm trying to figure out how we can get the select board to go along with this without having the papers in front of us. Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up, Bernard. Thank you. I guess I'm still uncomfortable. I don't understand why ComAv Canna would need to have something different. We should be standardizing these as much as possible. If there's, what my impression was, if there was something that was unique to their location that was, included back in 2018, and something's changed, I know that ComAv was just redone. They've got a dedicated bike lane. Maybe there was some language in there about people pulling up and parking, but I don't understand why we would go to create a novel, unique HCAs for ComAv Canna. It should be all the same. And that's what I was hearing, that you were going to make adjustments to what he had historically and maybe fix it to bring it in line with the other three. But I don't think we should have a unique HCA for ComAv Canna that's negotiated. That's different than the other three. It sounds like the Schedule A is a standard that was done with Meta, and the other two are going to adopt it. That's my point.
No, we're not doing that. We're keeping these as close to each other as possible while making clear that if there are specific issues to specific retailers, that we account for them, which is what the law requires us to do. We want to be clear with these retailers that, right, we want it to be clear and concise and easy to enforce, and there's no confusion among departments among who's got what thing in their HCA. But ComAv Canna is differently positioned in some ways because they're the last one to open, because of all the different, because they're we have to include everything that's in the ZBA special permit and so forth, and all of that. So there are slight differences, but they're not substantive. We don't intend them to be substantive differences. And, we want to just conclude the discussion with them. We don't envision a separate regulatory regime just because they happen to be the last business to open in town. Miriam's hand is up.
Pardon me?
Miriam's hand is up.
Miriam, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. So I've just been mostly listening, and I respect Paul's position, but I respectfully disagree. I feel comfortable voting on this now. I think the cleanup, I understand these are just little details. I think that it seems like everyone has really negotiated in good faith, that nobody's asking for something that the other person is saying, no, we have to do that. I mean, they're saying, well, nobody showed up to these community meetings. Do we really need to have them? But we'll still give you discretion to make us have them. I mean, I feel like it's been a very good faith negotiation, that it sounds very much like these are just little bits and pieces that need to be hammered out. And I don't have the same reservation with having some modifications to I totally see where you're coming from, Paul. I don't carry the same reservation. So I
Yeah.
feel comfortable voting on this.
So
And
let
I
me-
understand the need to get it done, which I think is also
Yeah,
important.
so Miriam, Bernard, if it's okay, I'll just respond to
Yeah,
Miriam.
go ahead.
Let me be clear. I'm not saying I'm not prepared to vote. What I'm trying to do is set expectations and send a message to staff and town council that these things should not vary much. That's my point. I'm fine to give authorization to get these things done, but it would be unfortunate if something came back that was substantially different than what the other three have just gone through for negotiations on. That's my point.
And that message is definitely received. We're on the
Okay,
same
thank
page.
you. Okay.
Yeah,
that's
no,
good.
thank you.
Absolutely.
It's important to make sure that everyone is on the same page. So it's good that you brought it up. Now we will definitely take that, and it's good the retailers hear it too.
Okay, okay, this is a public hearing. Why don't we open up the public hearing now? Because I see a couple of the lawyers out there itching to state their say.
At this time, we have 12 virtual attendees, and there are 4 in person. If anyone is interested in making a public comment, you can approach the presentation station or use the hand raise or Q&A feature to indicate you'd like to make a comment.
Jeffrey, now that we're giving you the opportunity to speak, right, instead of jumping up when you don't have the right to speak, right, you can do it now. And Jennifer, I'm sorry, you too, you jumping up.
Thank you. I will simply say what I said. We think the once Jonathan got involved and we know you were tied up with zoning and everything else. And so this process got delayed and sort of squished into a small time frame. One of the reasons that the HCA process went so smoothly is I had nothing to do with it. Brianna Audette of my office worked with Jonathan Simpson. She's at her first municipal meeting tonight, and she worked with Jonathan. And as I said, at about 4:30 this afternoon, all issues were resolved, and it was a good process. Thank you.
Okay, Paul, you have your,
Say one other thing.
yeah.
Nobody showed up at the community meeting.
Yeah, so Bernard, I just wanted to say that as someone who got involved in this industry and licensing early on, with the first proposed cannabis shop, I just want to acknowledge how far we've come as a community in our relationship with the operators, the working together with the operators, the partnership that's developed, and being able to have these type of meetings. And, if you notice, there's not 50 people in line to stand at the podium. It is remarkable how this has settled down. And I want to give a lot of credit to staff and to town council and specifically to the operators and their council. So Jeffrey and Jennifer and Adam and others that may have been involved. It really is a testament to how we should work together to find solutions to regulate an industry. And I know some folks aren't happy with the licensing fee, but I think that'll be resolved. But I do want to give just a lot of credit and congratulations to the operators, to the council representing them, and to staff for bringing us to a steady state that I think is now well integrated and functional within our community. Thank you.
Okay, John, I see your hand up.
Yes. And before I vote, and I will vote yes on these licenses, I just wonder if we could get a quick word as to whether there have been applications made for courier licenses. And if so, why are we not seeing those tonight?
There are no applications at this time, but there have been inquiries, and we look forward to working with interested parties and making sure that they have access to that if they choose to move forward. This is a public hearing, and Janelle O'Neill has been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and share your video if you're comfortable, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Good evening, everyone. Donald O'Neill, town meeting member of Precinct 4. I'm also on the advisory. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and other minorities in this community. I sent an email out yesterday in regards to a conversation like this, and I'm happy that you all are having this discussion. The one thing I haven't heard in this whole conversation, and I'm just curious, is the equity lens. You know, since 2017, before Canada and everyone else, there's been a lot of folks, minorities from this town, who have been inquiring in regards to cannabis. And, you know, these four in front of you got kind of like grandfathered in, I'd like to say, which was unfair. Now moving forward, there's new regulations that are coming out. You know, we got social consumption that's going to be out there on the table. And then if Mr. Simpson can explain what the social consumption is to the folks and the, you know, who are viewing this, just so the community can get a better understanding on what social consumption is and what that means, what that looks like in Brookline and in this town. I'd appreciate that. And Mr. Van Zoya, thank you for asking that question about the courier, because that has been on the top shelf for many, many years now. So thank you.
That was a question to Jonathan.
Certainly. So at root, social consumption would allow customers of marijuana establishments to consume the products they purchase on site, whether it's you know, edibles, things you smoke, whatever, which is currently explicitly disallowed under both state and local regulation and law. It has always been contemplated as coming at some point. The state recently just elected to do away with what it was going to, when it was going to do a pilot program, and just move forward with finalizing regulations for social consumption establishments. But at this point, it would be impossible to sort of describe what they would be like for Brookline any more than that, because it's not something that we can allow right now, because there's none licensed at the state level. We would have multiple chances to craft an approach to if and how such establishments would work in town, in terms of bylaw amendments, and then ultimately how the select board elects to condition any host community agreements they'd reach with any of those social consumption establishments. So that's about all I can say, but I hope it's helped anybody listening as to what a social consumption establishment is. It's not something we have in town right now. It's not something you find anywhere in the Commonwealth, but it may be coming in. You may be hearing a lot more about it in the coming years, as this, if the state, if the Cannabis Control Commission does elect to start licensing them, which they appear to be just about ready to do.
Okay, let me ask a question. Donnell brought up the issue of the diversity plans that are required in the host community agreements. Now, over the years, we've talked about these in terms of not just number of Black and Hispanic employees, for example, but also in terms of your mentorship programs. I know NETA has a mentorship program, and I'd like to get a sense of, you know, how successful that has been in creating the capacity of Black and Hispanic individuals to move into the industry. And the second thing that we've talked about is the question of ownership of the major retailers. And I know NETA and I believe Sanctuary talked about issuing certain classes of stock in order to get their employees into the ownership of the companies. So if you could give me some indication of how successful that has been, I'd appreciate it.
Nicole?
And see Scott Murphy. So I have several folks from NETA on and available to answer questions. I've only heard good things about the mentorship program, but haven't been connected to it as closely in the past year as I was when it was launched over several years. So if you see Nicole Heisler on.
She's been promoted.
Oh, she's been promoted. Nicole, can you take that question, talk a little bit about the mentorship program?
Sure. The mentorship program is presently in flux. We actually lost our leader last May. So we have a new woman named Jervon who's taken over and has been working with our employee resource groups. I would have to get a little more information from her to speak to the mentorship from the employee perspective. But I do know that we have, I don't know if you've heard about our most recent launch of the Best Dirty Lemonade. So we worked with what's called the Hot Box Pitch Competition. And we have a gentleman named Armani, who's been our partner. We took his product basically from inception to sales this April. And I think they're developing different flavors, but that's one of our most recent social equity initiatives.
Yeah, it'd be helpful, I think, for the select board to get a report
Absolutely.
on both the program, the mentorship program, as well as its successes, as well as other programs by other retailers.
We will do that, and we'll also provide a copy to Lloyd Gelano as well.
Okay.
Sure.
And the ownership piece?
I'm not sure if Nicole has that information, but we can provide it to you.
Okay, provide, yeah.
We'll provide
Okay,
that as
good.
well.
That's sufficient. Paul, you had your hand up, or is that
Yes,
Mary?
I do. Yeah. So I
Pardon
think
me?
it was Nicole from Netta. I was hoping she'd come back on. I had a question for her. Whoever was just on, or maybe I can ask to Jennifer. Oh, there she is. Hi, Nicole. So I noticed in the report, which I really appreciated your application. It provided a lot of information. It was very helpful, your diversity, your plan, and then importantly, the metrics of how you're doing against your diversity plan. And I was curious, it seemed like it looks like from 2022 to 2023, there's actually there's less diversity within the company. And I was wondering if you could speak to that. I was surprised that it dropped. I actually thought the bar chart was reversed. The way it was done, it looked like it was increasing, but in fact, it was decreasing. And I'm just curious, is that an industry issue? Is there a change in what Net has been doing? I'd be curious to know, is this happening with other operators? And it really looks like that we're losing and getting less diverse with the operations.
I think there's two things happening. One, you have the industry exploding, so more people are working in different places. And number two, unfortunately, our company has felt the pinch. And so we did have to cut our staff nearly in half.
Did those cuts disproportionately affect people of color or minorities?
I don't believe so. I believe if you were to look year over year, you would see a trend of decrease across the board. With that said, we do have an attrition rate at the entry level that is really high, and we are working to make changes to improve that. We're working with different hiring groups, but unfortunately, it's what it is in the industry right now.
I guess it did. It did look like across the board, diversity went backwards. And it kind of struck me. And I'm wondering, maybe are the other operators experiencing this? I don't know if Mr. Attorney Allen could speak to this.
We do. I mean, if we're looking specifically to Brookline, we do have, I would say, the greatest diverse staff in Brookline. But if you look across the whole Massachusetts industry, it has absolutely gone down, and we are working to increase year over year. We have a goal of 1%, but we haven't, since 2020, we haven't been able to reach that goal. We have, from the female perspective, we do have a lot of females at the higher level, but our diversity has actually gone down, not up, unfortunately,
Yeah,
year over year.
that's what I noticed. Okay, thank you. It's concerning, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not due to lack of effort, I will tell you, as the leader of the initiatives.
Well, we're concerned about lack of successful effort, maybe.
Well, we also,
Miriam?
if I may, just
Sure.
one more thing. We do work with Your Green Package. So we've brought delivery online, and it's one of the largest adult use deliveries in the state. So we've worked with them for 3 years. So from the perspective, if you're just looking at numbers, it isn't a goal we've met. But if you're looking at partnerships and how we're working with social equity companies specifically for wholesale, I do feel really proud of the work we're doing.
Good, thank you. Miriam?
She's all set.
No, I had my question answered. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Susan Park has requested to make a comment. I'm promoting her now.
Yes.
Bernard, I'm on the line.
I'm sorry.
Mike.
Mike Sandman has joined us via phone.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Susan, you've been promoted. Your 3 minutes will begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Hi, my name is Susan Park. I'm a town meeting member. And yeah, I just had a question referring to Danelle's comment, and then the question goes to Adam. And as you know, your store has just opened and you've launched. I've seen your Instagram, and congratulations for your opening. And I was just curious if you all had ideas of like social equity collaboration with minorities, or just other ideas that you've had percolating as you're opening, since this is, you know, really important to our town.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, would you like me to respond?
Yes, yes, Adam?
Okay, thank you. And thank you. I appreciate the comments. So, I mean, I will just reiterate that, you know, ComF Canada is unique in a certain way to other businesses in the community, in that it is female owned, veteran owned, and it is a small family business. It's operated by the Houck family. It's a mother, father, 2 sons, and they operate that business. They have been working within the requirements of the diversity plan. They do have a diverse workforce. I believe that John or JB Houck might be on the line today, who might be able to talk a little bit about their outreach. They did conduct outreach. Garrett Houck could probably, he had his hand raised, so I'm being told that he may or may not be able to participate here. But I know that as they ramped up their opening, they did work with several different organizations for outreach and employment. I don't have precise information, but I anticipate that some of the issues that were raised by some of the other retailers may affect them as well. But certainly if they're around and available to speak to their hiring to date, they can certainly do that, or we could always supplement to the board at a later time.
Yeah, why don't you at least supplement to the board?
Sure.
Yeah, and I only
Okay.
asked that question.
Sorry, it's not, we usually don't allow a back and forth in public comment. It's not a dialogue.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Susan.
Yes, we have met or exceeded our diversity agreements, and I think we're well going to exceed them.
Okay, so send the select board report on that, you know, in more detail than is in the application documents. So, okay.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
any other
We will
questions?
take care of that.
Pardon me?
I said, thank you, Mr. Chair. We will take care of that.
Okay. Any other questions from the select board or from the audience?
That concludes the public hearing.
Okay, I'd like to close the public hearing. And unless anyone objects on the select board, I'd like to begin to I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's good.
Okay. Begin to make motions to approve various documents. First, I move approval of the host community agreements or the template as presented in the packet and by town council, contingent upon the final agreement with the retailers. And I think that that means that we are relying on town council and staff to make final versions of these documents, not substantially different from what we currently, or is currently in the documents, but to clean up some small details. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi.
Aye.
I understand Michael Sandman's here. Is Michael Sandman
He's on the phone.
on the phone?
Mike, just press *6 to unmute.
We'll come back to him. Paul Warren,
Aye.
chair votes aye. Michael Sandman, are you there?
Let me text him.
Okay, let's move on.
Aye.
Oh, okay.
Have you got that?
Thank you, Mike. Okay.
So I was driving and it's pushing *6 under the circumstances were a little difficult.
Okay. Okay, next, we have Commonwealth Canna. Now, their documents are still in negotiation, but only with respect to minor issues that town council does not have any concerns with respect to. Is that correct, Jonathan?
Yes, particularly given the clear messages we received from the board today.
Okay. And those outstanding issues relate to matters that will not be taken out of the HCA, but will be only implemented at the request of the town. Is that accurate?
That is, there may be, no, because I believe, like I said, with the bike racks earlier, that there may be some site-specific ones that are just simply removed to reflect the actual situation on the ground. So I just don't want to state something on the record that is not categorically true.
Okay, how are we going to vote for this?
I would say that they are either site-specific or would only represent a lessening of adhesion to make it at the option of the town or something along those lines.
Bernard, can I make a suggestion?
Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
May I suggest that that we authorize you to, on our behalf, approve anything that's that is non-substantive to the template with Chaz. So Chaz has the authority, but if something comes up, instead of trying to corral the 5 members of the board, we could authorize the chair to approve it with the town administrator. I would be comfortable with that. Check needs.
Okay. So let me read some language we have that may, although I'm not sure, may address this along with that authorization to me and Chaz. It is moved to approve the renewal application and license conditions pertaining to the marijuana retail license held by Com Avenue Canna, 1030 Commonwealth Avenue, 2nd floor, with the understanding that because conditions in the host community agreement are relevant to the license and are still being finalized, the board reserves its right to take this matter up again if a final agreement cannot be reached. And I guess I would add, authorizes the chair and town council to review the final documents and approve them as appropriate. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay, is that clear? It's not an elegant sentence, but does it say what we want to say?
Bernard, I think if the two parties can come to agreement, it's gonna come back to us anyway in the future, so you don't even need to really say that. It's you and, you know, the chair is authorized with the town administrator to finalize the HCA for COMAV Cana. And you've heard from us that we don't want you to make substantive changes to it. That's, you know, much different from the template that we've already seen implemented with the other three.
Right, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go with the language I stated, which I think is explained by what Paul just said. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Mary Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Mike Sandman,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Okay, next we're moving to the three licenses that are actually completed, and the negotiations are completed. They just have to put ink to paper, as I understand. Okay, so first of all, Mission Cannabis. I move to approve the renewal application and license conditions pertaining to the marijuana retail license held by Mission Cannabis, 1024B Commonwealth Avenue, with the understanding that because conditions in the host community agreement are relevant to the license and are still being finalized in minor part, the board reserves its right to take this matter up again if a final agreement cannot be reached by 12/31. I'm not sure that's what we want to say, is it?
That just last part of the sentence is no longer relevant.
Okay.
For these three.
Okay.
So you just can stop at after their address. Right.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah. Thank you, Devin, for making this so simple. Okay. So I move to approve the renewal application and license conditions pertaining to the marijuana retail license held by Mission Cannabis, 1024B Commonwealth Avenue, period. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Mike Sandman,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Okay, next, similarly with Sanctuary Medicinals, we have basically, we have completed negotiations. We just need to put ink to paper so that we have a final document. So I move to approve the renewal application and license conditions pertaining to the marijuana retail license held by Sanctuary Medicinals, 1351 Beacon Street, period. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Mike Sandman,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. And finally, Netta, I move to approve the renewal application and license conditions pertaining to the marijuana retail and medical marijuana treatment center licenses held by New England Treatment Access LLC, Netta, 160 Washington Street, period. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. John Van Scoyac,
Aye.
Miriam Ashkenazi,
Aye.
Mike Sandman,
Aye.
Paul Warren,
Aye.
and chair votes aye. Thank you, everyone. It took a little while, but we got through it. And thank you, Jonathan, for all the great work you've done on this.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Last item.
Last item, oh, this is going to take a little time too.
We started early.
Yeah, okay.
You too.
Thank you.
Take care.
National Community Survey, custom questions. So you can put that up on the board.
I did. And I have this. All right. Go away, Microsoft.
Oh, and can't get into Zoom. My password expired.
Oh, well, I'll blow it up on the screen here and I'll try and blow it up.
Oh, no, I think I have it in my notes here.
Well, I have an active red line that also includes the proposed question that Paul circulated earlier.
Uh-huh, okay.
or last night, I believe. So members of the board have had an opportunity to review and offer individual comments on the proposed community survey questions, which we have now integrated into a red line here that should be on your screens in front of you. Can you see the screen? Can members of the board, except Mike obviously is in transit, so I apologize, Mike. I'll read the questions aloud so everyone's aware. But can members of the board see this on their screens?
Yeah, I see.
I'm coming upstairs now, so I'll be there in a minute.
Okay, so the questions are, is Brookline's government meeting your needs and expectations? What strengths and or weaknesses do you see in Brookline's town form of government? Do you know your town meeting members? How have you worked with your town meeting members or any other town meeting members on a town related problem? What strengths? Oh, I'm sorry, that's doubled. We'll get rid of that. Are you involved in any way in town governing bodies, including elected positions, appointed boards, commissions, or committees in any way? If so, how have you been involved with those bodies? And if you have been involved, how satisfied are you with your ability to make a difference for Brookline and its residents? What 3 budgetary priorities would you recommend the select board devote additional resources to, if possible? And what about the
Congratulations.
Hi, how you doing?
Congratulations.
question, Mike, thank you. Do you have any other thoughts or suggestions to the select board beyond your responses above that you think will make Brookline a better community? So those are the proposed questions. Now, remember that for these open-ended questions, the more of them you have, the less space people have to respond. This is a single piece of paper in a big community survey. So I think brevity is appropriate. Just be advised that the more you ask, the less substantive answers you're likely to get on the whole. I would note that you now have 3 different questions involving whether people are involved in town governing bodies. You may want to try and condense those in some way. You have questions about town. You have 2 different questions about town meeting members. You may want to condense that into. You may want to just eliminate the question: do you know your town meeting members, and how have you worked with? So have you worked with your town meeting members or any other members of town meeting on a town related problem? If so, how did it go? Because then that might that might give you some more space. So those would be my initial
Yeah, I
recommendations.
think those are good recommendations. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Okay.
Paul's raised his hand.
Paul.
Hi, thank you. On the first question, if you could scroll back a little bit.
Sure.
I'm wondering, this is like a yes or no question. Would it be helpful to have some sort of rating? Satisfied, very satisfied, unsatisfied, or something, or meeting our expectations. A rating would be good, because otherwise you're just going to get a yes or no.
Or maybe, what about saying, instead of is Brookline town government meeting your needs, saying how is Brookline's town? And I think we should put town in there, town government meeting your needs and expectations.
So when you say how, give an example of what you might get as a response. Picking up my trash there.
Yeah, okay.
I think that's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So I think one thing that concerns me when I read this is we're going to send this out to a lot of people who don't know that Brookline is a town.
Yeah.
And haven't got any idea that there's town meeting. And I think we need to start with a couple of questions to identify the extent to which people know what the form of government is. Are you aware Brookline could be a town or a city? Are you aware that it's a town?
Yeah, there's some objection to putting those types of questions in, but
Where are the objections coming from?
Paul, didn't you?
What did I do, Bernard? I may have done something. I usually do. What did I do?
I thought you objected to focusing on questions that would raise the issue of town versus city.
No. What I said was, I don't think
just want to
people
establish
understand
context.
what we're a town. Like, they don't know. When you ask them about, are they satisfied with our form of government? People don't know what our form of government is.
Paul is agreeing essentially with Mike.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm not interested in doing a survey on whether people want a city or want a town. What I'm interested in doing is establishing right at the beginning, do they know where they live?
Yeah. Okay. So one of a sentence that was taken out maybe you want to put back in and it says Brookline is organized as a town form of government with a legislative branch comprised of 255 elected town meeting members, an executive branch comprised of 5 at-large select board members, and a town administrator. I mean, is that what you're?
Yeah, and I say, or you can certainly put that in, and you might add, are you aware of that structure? That's, certainly put it in,
Yeah.
because at the very least, we want people to know that.
Okay.
But it might be useful to find out, do we have 40% recognition, 100%?
Joe, did you want to speak? Oh. Okay.
Marion has her
So
hand up.
Miriam and Paul both have their hands up.
Okay, Miriam?
I just have to say, on the 1 to 5 scale, because the scientist in me, that's called a Likert scale. Just so you all know, it has a name, it's been validated, it's excellent for this kind of research. So you can just steal the Likert scale, Devin. You don't have to.
We like the Likert scale.
Likert,
Likert.
Okay, Paul?
Yep. So I guess the one thing I would encourage us to do is if we ask a question, the responses that we get, we would want to be able to have some action. Is it actionable information that we're getting back? If we ask someone if they know that we're organized as a town, let's say they don't, what would we do? Would we send a mailer to each community member to say, hey, we're a town? I understand.
Well, no, I mean, the fact that they don't know is information that helps us.
To do what?
Helps
Helps
what
us
helps
do what?
helps us know whether we need to spend a little more time explaining town governance to the great mass of people who don't participate in it.
John's hand is up.
John, John.
Yeah, thanks. So maybe I misunderstood the process. Maybe I didn't. But
We lost John.
He's gone.
John, if you can hear us, we lost you.
From the process.
Does look like we've lost him. We'll try and get him back.
The process has gotten in the way of the process.
Indeed.
Well, as long as John has gone off for offline for a moment. Paul, I think my response to the question, is it actionable? Yeah, of course. Ultimately, you want information back that's actionable, but you also want, just as it's useful to set a context for the person answering the questionnaire, it gives us a context for understanding some of the answers that come back.
Okay, I mean, I think that's valid. That's valid, Mike. Thank you.
So are you proposing a question about, did you know, or are you saying?
Well, I think what Bernard has said, Bernard read a sentence describing the structure.
Yep.
And just a question might very well be, are you aware that that is the structure of local government?
Okay.
Or on a scale of 1 to 5. Well, I guess that doesn't make.
Have a scale of 1 to 5 about awareness.
Yeah.
But.
How aware, yeah.
That's a kind of a yes, no.
Okay. I'm trying to think of a different way of saying it, but.
Yeah, if you find another way, I don't mind. I just want to get the question.
On a scale of 1 to 5, how familiar are you with the structure of town government?
I still feel like it's a yes, no question.
Yeah, let's make it simple. Let's not complicate it too much.
Okay, then is it Likert, you said, scale?
Yes, Likert, Likert.
Being on the select board is like being in college. Learn so much.
Without the fun.
Okay. Let's see. Where are we?
I'm working on this initial question about the form of government. Brookline is a town with a representative town meeting form of government comprised of a legislative branch of 255 elected town meeting members, executive branch of 5 at-large elect board members. Select board members is not capitalized. Members is not capitalized. That will confuse people, but that's practice.
Are you
and a
town administrator?
appointed town administrator to
May May I suggest that?
Yes.
I'm sorry if I'm jumping up.
No, go for it.
My hand's up. There we go. If you start it with, did you know, yes or no, then you'll get a yes or no question.
Right.
Brookline is a town with a,
Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's simple.
Okay. So next, what,
So then you have this on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being, I went and I Googled Likert scale and I picked the terms from the Likert scale that corresponded to this, with 5 being very satisfied and 1 being very dissatisfied. How would you rate Brookline's government's efforts to meet your needs and expectations?
good, good.
And an open-ended question, what strengths or weaknesses do you see in Brookline's town form of government? Then, have you contacted or worked with members of town meeting on a town-related problem? If so, how was your experience? Are you involved in any way in town governing bodies? So, which ones and how?
I wonder if town meeting may take offense that they're being targeted. Are we asking a question? Have you tried to contact the select board and how satisfied were you? Or have you tried to contact town staff?
Okay, throw us into the questions.
I guess, yeah, I'm not sure we need the question, I guess.
Maybe elected officials or
Oh, yeah.
elected or appointed?
Well, except town meeting members are supposed to represent, their constituents, and it's important information for us to have that people don't know that they have town meeting members that they can call upon.
Instead of us.
Well,
Then
I'm joking.
Yeah.
John's hand is up.
Okay, John?
Well, it seems like I disappeared from the meeting and I have no idea whether the statement I made previously was heard by anybody.
No,
We lost you about midway through. You might want to start again.
Midway through. So did I mention the question that specifically asked people, in light of, the taxes that they pay,
No.
how do they feel? No?
Nope.
So
We
do
didn't
you
even-
mind if I just go over that part of it?
Go for it.
Yeah. So in addition to the questions from the 2014 survey, my suggestion was that we formulate a question that puts a price on people's feelings about the services they get. And so I suggested this question, generally speaking, where local property taxes are concerned, and then you check the answer that applies. The first one is, I feel I get my dollar's worth of services for the taxes I pay. The second one is, I'm dissatisfied with the level of services given the taxes I pay. And the third one is, to ease the tax burden, I'd be willing to see the town spend less on, and then it goes through the major services that the town provides, and yes or no, would you be willing to see the town spend less? So I sent that. I don't know whether it was seen by the other members of the select board.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether there's room in the survey to do more than just what's on the screen that we're discussing right now, but that's what I sent.
well, one problem with that question is that most people in town don't pay property taxes directly. So, and we need to capture, what their feelings are with respect to town services, et cetera. I'm also a little uncomfortable with asking people what they would like to cut in a survey like this.
About what they would like to increase. I mean,
Well,
you get
yeah,
into a difficult,
That speaks to the difference between me and the rest of the board. I kind of feel like you never find out what people are willing to sacrifice unless you require that they specify what would they be willing to sacrifice. If all you do is say, what services would you like to see more of? Then they can say all of them without, having to account for the consequence that would raise their taxes. And if they answered that they're unhappy with how much they're paying in taxes, then we haven't solved any problem at all. We just keep creating this unrealistic expectation.
Miriam?
50% of residents in Brookline are renters. I just don't think that's an appropriate question. I think that when you ask when the budgetary priorities are, people will tell you what their budget priorities are. And if they don't list something, then you learn something from the negative space as well. I don't have any problem asking people where they want us to spend our money. But I think basing it on who pays taxes it doesn't make me comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry
Paul?
that it doesn't make you comfortable.
Well, okay.
Well, I'm
okay.
expressing my opinion, John, just like you're expressing yours.
Okay,
Okay.
Paul?
You guys are all making me uncomfortable. Listen, so I sent out an email to a very large audience, asking the two questions. What are the three things that you'd like to see that, if we could, spend more money on? I got a great response on that. It was amazing, the response. I'm hoping to tabulate it and send it and share it. I also asked the question, what would be things that you'd be willing to decrease funding on? I think I had one person answer the question. Nobody answered the question. So I don't think you'd get an answer on what would you cut. It'd be great if they would, but they're not going to do that. They're always going to focus on what they want more of. And I agree with Miriam that if you see patterns of things that people aren't asking for, it's off the list, or there's very few mentions of it, it's a lower priority. I think it'd be invaluable. But, I don't want to dismiss John's message that, we can't increase without finding some other place to fund it from. But I think that's something we could decide, and we always decide as part of the budget process.
Okay, Mike?
May I make it
If I can,
Yeah.
take my place in the line here. The suggestion I have, I think that, John, you raise a really good point. And yet it's true that only half the town's residents pay real estate taxes directly. Perhaps the thing to do is to list out the major services and say, would you be willing to rank these from 1 to, if you listed 10 services, rank them from 1 to 10, so that it does a couple of things. One is it informs everybody who's looking at that list what the town actually does. And secondly, it makes them think about the very question that you're asking, John. And very clearly, something gets a low rank is something that they wouldn't want to spend more money on. They might be willing to spend less on. And that's kind of a neutral way of asking the question, it seems to be.
May I just respond to a couple of comments that have been made?
Okay.
There's nothing unusual in doing a survey to have a subset of people who are not all the people who are surveyed. You survey and you have answers that you separate out that come from those age 65 and older, and those, whatever category you choose. This gets at a category which, I'm sorry to, have to emphasize this so much. It's a pretty darned important category. 70% of our revenues come from home and condo owners. And the preface to the question, which I admit I didn't include, is quite simple. Answer only if you own a home or condo on which you pay taxes. So from within this broad survey, we look for those who are surveyed who happen to be homeowners and condo owners, from whom we get 70% of our revenues. And we ask them, do you think are you satisfied with the level of services you're getting for the taxes that you pay? And if not, do you have any ideas on services that you wouldn't miss if you got less of them? That's all this is intended to do.
Yeah, but it gives the message that we're really just interested in homeowners' views on these matters. I think that is, what people are concerned about.
Then I invite someone else to add a question for people who are not homeowners, condo owners.
Yeah, I'm not.
John, I did actually, and I don't know if you absorbed all of that. But what I was suggesting was that we ask a question, that we list the various types of services and ask people to rank them and that's a very neutral way of getting at the question that you're asking, which I think is a valid question. I'm trying to support what you're saying and put it into neutral terms.
Yeah, and Mike, I appreciate that very much. And I think you do have a good suggestion, but I think this goes one step further and, requires people to say, if you're going to complain that your taxes are too high, what are the services that you think you could do without?
Bernard.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Miriam.
Yeah, so I agree with Bernard. I think that it's not even that a question like that doesn't even imply that we are saying homeowners are somehow more important than renters. It just outright says it. And I just don't think that gets us what we want in this survey. And I agree with Mike that I think his question gets to what John is asking, which is an important question. And we have to be very thoughtful about how we phrase it. I really love the idea of ranking because, as Mike said, it also, there's signaling to people, here are all the things this town does for you that you maybe don't actually think about or aren't aware of. And if you had to choose, because we do, which ones are most important to you? Where should we be putting our money? And by default, we get the lower rank. We get items that end up in the lower half of the ranking. We get an answer to both pieces of that question.
Okay. I like Mike's suggestion also.
Thank you.
Except
So
is water and sewer going to is going to be the lowest ranked?
Well,
I bet you'd be real surprised.
Okay.
Guys,
uh,
so I put into the chat, because I had actually drafted this question originally as a list. That's what I was working on. But I then shortened it to just, because I wasn't sure how to phrase it. I just put in the chat. I don't know if this is the right list, but, I kind of brainstormed with myself a set of services that you could ask people to rank. I had originally thought, fund something less, the same, or more, but you could also rank them the way Mike is saying.
All this, police, fire, schools,
I think
public
we,
health.
we ask people to rank them.
Right.
Right. So there's two ways you could do it, Miriam, I think. You
Yeah.
could have next to police, you could say, keep the funding the same, decrease it or increase it.
Yeah, I would.
You could do that for each one, or you could rank them one to
I think,
15.
scientifically, if you want the scientific answer.
Yes.
I
I really do.
So I would say scientifically, you want to just ask people to rank it.
Okay.
And I can give you the explanation now or later or not at all.
No, we'll take your word for it.
Take your word
Okay.
for it. But again, this was just a list that I started to create. I don't think it's complete but it's a starting point.
You'd get a really interesting set of answers if you put next to each one the amount of money that goes into that particular budget, but I don't think we ought to do that. No, this is
Yeah.
let's go with the
A
simple.
lot of bias. Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
saying.
that doesn't,
A lot of
that does,
bias
yeah. Oh,
into the
yes.
question.
Okay, so
Yeah.
where are we? We have the opening question, which is explaining who we are or what we are. Then we have, what's the second one?
So, right, did you know? And then on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate Brookline's government's efforts to meet your needs and expectations? What strengths or weaknesses do you see in Brookline's town form of government? Have you contacted or worked with members of town meeting on a town-related problem? If so, how was your experience? Are you involved in any way in town governing bodies, elected positions, appointed boards, et cetera? If so, which ones, and how satisfied have you been with your ability to affect positive change?
That would be rated 1 to 5.
You want to do that on a rating scale?
What do people think?
I worry the ranking is going to take up a large amount of space
Okay.
on a piece of paper, the ranking of services. So I want to be careful
Got it.
about.
Okay, I'm
Mary?
just gonna say, the more that you can use the Likert scale, the easier it is to evaluate the survey once it's completed, and the more likely people are to complete the survey, because many people are familiar with the Likert scale, and it becomes very easy for them to then. People tend to not answer open-ended questions. And open-ended questions are very difficult to evaluate comparatively. So if there is a question that you can make a Likert scale question, I would. That's my 2 cents.
Okay, Mike?
So a small thing, Chaz, I think at one point you said, how satisfied are you with the Brookline's town form of government? I think I would leave out town form of. I don't, again, it's not an effort to evaluate whether we should be a town, a city, or a country, which I think we sometimes believe we are.
Or a corporation.
Or a corporation, a nonprofit corporation. And I don't know how others feel, but I do think that at this stage, we've made the point that we're a town. You can look at the top of the page, you can see what the structure is. this is the form of government you've got.
So
And if that doesn't make sense to people, I don't mind, but I do think,
No,
I
I
wanted to
think
make the
you're right.
point.
Paul, you wanted to say something?
no, John has his hand up. I jumped ahead of him.
Okay, John?
Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity to say to the renters who are listening tonight, I do not think any less of you. Because I put a question in the survey that aims at getting some views from some condo owners and homeowners. And I suspect the renters who are listening tonight understand that. I'm more than happy to cook up some questions for renters as well. But this is one that's of interest to me, and I think it's of value to the town to know if taxpayers feel they're getting their money's worth at this time. Because guess what? In the case of the homeowners, their taxes just went up 10%. And looking at what's coming in the out years, there's going to be a trend of significant increases in taxes for a while to come. It'd be useful to have this information, but if people don't want it, that's fine too.
Yeah, I don't want it. And one issue, as Mike just said, is that I don't mean to
Go ahead.
place blame on you. 10% was for single family homes. Huge part of the owner base is condos, and their tax situation is much different. So I mean, when you start, I mean, we're going down a path that becomes much too complicated for what we're trying to accomplish here.
Well, but you also know that it could swing in the other direction, you know, in next year, the year after that, or the year after that.
Yeah,
It has to,
anything can happen.
Yeah, it has in the past, but let's not try to. We're trying to do something that's politically neutral.
Right.
At least I think we are, and so it's important to keep that in mind when we're trying to when we're putting these questions together. And that's why I say, you know, leave out town form off, for example, and just ask people to rank things in terms of their importance to them, rather than ask them what they would drop or what they would increase. And that's the spirit in which I think we should be doing this.
So I've modified based on the
hand
feedback
is
that
up.
you, I'm sorry, go ahead, Paul.
The hand is up. Thanks. Chaz, and this question for you, is there a question in the main body of the survey that asks any demographic information? Like, are you a homeowner or are you a renter?
Yes.
Ask that question. If that question is asked somewhere else in the survey, that would really help inform and understand the context of the answers to the questions. Is there a homeowner versus renter question somewhere in the main body?
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
So John, that may help inform our interpretation of the survey, right?
Yep.
Well, it depends on whether whether we get the breakdown of the answers to the other questions according to whether the person answered homeowner or renter.
But so that's a great question. Chaz, do we get the raw data if we wanted to, the pivot table wizards?
Yes.
On
Yep.
this
We can.
call?
And indeed, we made that ask of them to
So we can find out, John, if I understand what Chaz is saying, is that we would have the data to be able to say of, renters, how many people are satisfied with the form of government? Of homeowners, how many are satisfied with the form of government? How did services get prioritized, renters versus homeowners? That might be an interesting analysis. We may not want to do it, but I think that would be available to you.
Miriam?
I'm just going to say that, yeah, what Paul is talking about is disaggregating the data and then looking at the trends based on, right, the demographics. And I think it would be, in fact, very useful, and you would get to John's question without actually asking John's question.
Right.
So I think it's an excellent way to do it. It's also why I'm going to say again, if we do a Likert scale, it makes it much easier to then disaggregate the data and look at it and take pieces of it and say, okay, let's just look at the answers from renters. let's just look at the answers from homeowners, and then we can compare the scale. Oh, sorry, my dog just fell. We can compare the scale.
Okay, Mike?
It brings up a question about, it's a good question. So I would assume that we're going to be able to do cross tabulations here. Otherwise, honestly, there's not much point in doing a survey if we don't get the raw data. But what else are we asking about demographics? For example, are we asking about age, or are we asking about any other form of?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
We get age, we get race. Again, it's dependent.
Okay, a normal, standard sort of a
Standard
demographic package. Okay, good. That's important. Yeah. Yeah, that way you find out whether, there's an age gradient, for example, in satisfaction with one thing or another.
And is there a question regarding religion?
I don't recall, but I think the answer is yes.
Okay, and that'd be important.
Chaz, I think that might be roads and sidewalks maybe, or
Yeah,
we don't have any highways, yeah.
Okay, where are we?
I'm working on the list of services, because I will remind you, we do have to get this to them tomorrow. So.
Okay.
Well,
Can I add one more? And this is probably for the demographics, but I don't know, is it, and maybe it's not possible, but is it possible to ask if somebody's been a long-term renter? Like when we do the demographics, can we ask them if they've been renting? How long, if you are a renter, how long have you been renting in Brookline? 0 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years?
I don't believe that's in there. I believe there is a question of how long have you lived in the community, but I don't think there's a question of if you rent, how long have you been renting?
Yeah, that's a good substitute.
Yeah.
Well, but you could be renting for the past, you could live in Brookline for 12 years and, you've been a homeowner for 4, and the rest of the time you may have rented. Maybe you could infer it possibly.
Yeah.
Miriam, why would you want it? I'm curious, what would that get at?
I think because I think also there's this, that we have a large group of people who are in Brookline temporarily, but we also have a large group of people who are here to set down roots. And I think it might be helpful to differentiate those two communities.
I think it's a practical matter. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Chaz, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry. I think it's a practical matter, given that we have demographic questions in one section and we can't touch those. It's going to be hard to try and ask them again in this section, especially when you've got one.
No, and then I
page.
think if you can't ask it in the demographic section, it becomes biased and loaded. I wouldn't ask it in the main section.
Okay, where are we now? We have to get this ready by tomorrow.
Yep. So I think generally speaking, and I'm putting together this list of services. So once we're done with that, I think we have at least a good initial draft. So per the discussion we've had and Miriam's comment about making sure that wherever possible using the Likert scale, we now have at the top of standard Likert scale. Police treat 5 is very satisfied, 4 satisfied, et cetera. So we have this yes or no question. Did you know that Brookline is a town with a representative town meeting form of government? Explains that. And it's a yes or no answer. Then on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate Brookline's government's efforts to meet your needs and expectations? Then have you contacted or worked with members of town meeting on a town related problem? If so, on a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied were you with your experience?
Should that be, I think someone said town meeting member or other elected official?
Well, that's us.
Could I also
Or
offer?
elected official, town meeting member, select board.
Just other elected officials.
May I offer an edit, Chaz, before you go too much?
Go for it.
Where we say needs and expectations, could we just say needs?
Sure.
Because we may meet their needs. We're never going to meet anybody's expectations.
Oh, I think that is
yes.
spot on.
Okay.
Well, they expect us to meet their needs.
Okay. So, okay, where are we?
So have you
People object to that idea?
That's fine. I'm willing to delegate
Oh, my.
the creation of the list of services to you so that you can do this at your leisure.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel confident based on our discussions and based on Paul's draft list that I have a sense of where you're going.
Yeah.
I do want to obviously emphasize services to the aging, since I know that's a priority. And I just want to frame that in the right way so people
Right.
understand what that is, supportive services, not just the senior center, but, and I want to differentiate that in a way that makes sense from the broader social safety net, because there are different questions there about ensuring targeted services to the aging population. John?
Chaz, I will also send you kind of the categories of responses that I got, which are a little representative, but again, it's my list. But it might help inform. I think that's how I built the list that I suggested in the chat. But if you think that would be helpful, but I think you know the services of the town, so.
I do, yes.
Yes.
Generally.
Okay.
List of
Okay,
22
John, I
departments.
think you had your hand up.
Thank you. Just hoping to get an answer to the other part of my question, which is, do we have room in this survey to include the special topics questions that were in the 2014 survey?
Can you circulate those? I don't think I ever received that,
Well,
John. I'm sorry.
and you're right. I sent it to Devin, but not to you. Devin has them, and anybody who has the 2014 survey has them, and they were on page 9 to 11, I believe, of that survey. I might have cited the pages wrong, but
Let me pull those up real quick.
What do they call it, Devin?
special topics.
Special topics?
No, that's not what it's called in the OneDrive folder.
So
ABS.
It's in the table of contents. I think that's what it's called.
I'm without benefit of computers. So.
Oh,
I will pull them one sec.
Oh, wait, John, you're
I
just,
have something called JVS survey question.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. And correcting
that-
myself, they were on pages 11, 12, and 13.
and that's from the email that I sent you 3 weeks ago with that 2014 and the
2014 survey.
Isn't that what we just discussed?
No.
Hold on.
Okay, here we go.
What I'm looking at is the question we just discussed about only having property tax, only having people who.
No, it's
John is talking about
Am I
something.
looking at something else then?
indifferent. Yeah.
Hold on, I think I have it.
Devin's pulling it now.
Here we go. No, that's not it.
I can read them aloud. if you
I
want.
have them.
Yeah, I thought you would. There they are.
So Chaz, are these are the things that we've been drafting that you've been working on, are they the same as these special topics? Does it go into the same section?
It goes into the
What?
same section. That's right.
Okay,
Last in
gotcha.
2014, these were the topics that the 2014 board
I
thought
see.
important
Okay.
to ask.
Can we
That's a-
scroll through them?
That the board
I will
used.
just add one thing, which I hope I don't sound like I'm a mean person, but I really thought we should have the option of people saying poor in addition to excellent or good. It kind of felt to me like, oh, well, you only gave people two choices, with excellent or good.
Yeah.
I actually think they did, and no one answered for. But I'll double check.
Well, then there's like 30% no answer, I suppose, but
I'm confused
that's
about
the
this.
only change I suggested be made.
So
Otherwise,
those were your 6 custom questions. So if you scroll up, they were rate the quality of the following aspects of the town of Brookline's website.
Uh-huh.
Then there was where do you get your information about town events?
Okay.
There was what best describes your housing.
Now we're already asking that in the demographics.
We already ask if you own or you rent, but we don't ask where you live. We don't ask what type of housing you live in.
and this
Right,
also
whether-
includes public housing.
Right. Question 4, do you have health insurance? Question 5, what is your sexual orientation? I believe that is now contained in the basic demographic questions. And does any member of your household have a physical handicap or is anyone disabled? We'll check there. I believe that's part of the standard demographics now too, but I will check. I want to make sure. So of those, I think 2 are now standard demographic questions. One asks about specific type of housing as opposed to do you own or rent? Because again, this doesn't ask, do you own or rent? It says, do you live in multifamily housing, whether rent or own? Do you live in a single family house, whether you rent or you own it? Or are you in public housing?
Okay.
I think given where we are, what I will do with this, if it's all right with you, is I will try and fit as many of these as I can, except for the last 2, since I think they're standard demographic questions, onto the single page. And when we transmit them to Paulco, I'll say, how much of this can you fit? And we will prioritize your 2023 questions to the extent we can. And then if there's room for some of the 2014 questions to come back, we will prioritize them in the order in which they appear, which is about 1 about the website, 2 about where you get your news, and 3 about your housing. I think the question of healthcare sort of answered itself in the sense that there are very few people out there that don't have healthcare. And given that I think that this was asked at the outset of the Affordable Care Act mandate, that may have been an attempt to capture how successful it was in the community.
I think that's true.
Yeah, I will confess, I thought to myself, it'll be really interesting to see if that has actually increased. That's one of the reasons I thought it was worth preserving. But I'm talking about the negative number, who don't
Right.
have it. Yeah.
So Chaz, are we limited to 1 page? Is that?
1 page is what we get.
Yeah, so we'll submit them tomorrow, but then Fung and I are meeting with our representative on Thursday to execute the
Contract.
schedule, kind of do the kickoff. So at that meeting, I can assess how much wiggle room we'll have.
Okay. So why don't we delegate to Chaz and Devin final write-up of these questions. I think they have a sense of what we're trying to get at.
Yep.
And we will obviously, the other thing is that they do is that they, for example, they have their, knowledge of what gets the best kind of response in terms of Likert scale things too. So we will be sure that we take their guidance on how to frame these questions to get the most useful response back. Is it satisfaction we're looking for? Is there some other way of framing it that's going to make people more engaged and more likely to answer it accurately? We will take judgment from the experts on that, but I think we have a pretty clear indication from you on these questions about what you want to get at in terms of people's experience with our government and the services that the government provides.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you. That ends that item on the agenda, and that is the end of our meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye now.
I would like to say happy holidays, safe travels, and whatever you do, and happy New Year.
Happy New Year,
Yes.
everybody.
Happy New Year.
holidays.
Happy New Year.
Take care, everyone.